Good morning to you. It's now 9 o'clock Central African time on this Friday, the 30th of December 2016. This is Newsroom, and I'm Kendall Makamate. I will be with you for the next 3 hours. We're coming to you live from our headquarters in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, Gauteng, South Africa. This morning, and this Friday morning, our focus is on the Fees Must Fall protests that dominated most of the university campuses around the country. With just 2 days to go till the end of the year, we have a question for you. What have you had as your most memorable moments of 2016, good or bad? And as always, we are conducting a poll online where we ask you, will public schools ever be able to perform as well as private schools? We'd like to know what your thoughts are, and I'm hoping that we've got a few in already before we get to our headlines. With that said, we know that we can always get everything on our Facebook page as well as on our Twitter handle. Now, that question, will public schools ever be able to perform as well as private schools? We have 351 votes already. 22% say yes, it is possible, and 78% a resounding no. Massive response there. So our Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom and our Facebook page, that's where we're taking your comments and your thoughts. But first, let's take a look at the news headlines. It's been a night of celebrations for matriculants from independent schools across the country. US President Barack Obama hit back at Russia for meddling in the recent presidential election.
We make sure to be where news is happening,
both locally and globally.
For the latest business news, stay with us.
From South Africa to the world, we've got all your latest sporting news.
Don't miss our weather updates every hour.
Stay tuned to News Today, Monday to Friday, from 3 to 5:30 p.m. here on SABC News.
Probably we should ask the question, is the ICC targeting African leaders?
For the life of me, I would hate to be charged with crimes against humanity. Very few people can deny nor ignore that there are crimes being committed on the African continent at this very moment. Now, we need to be able to hold people to account regardless of where they are from.
South Africa has a body of international law that it's committed itself to, that seeks to counter impunity in the world when it comes to gross human rights violations. In this specific instance, we have a problem. By the way, you must remember that South Africa has a law on extradition and mutual legal assistance that enable us to extradite any fugitive of justice from anywhere in the world so that they can stand trial for whatever crimes.
It's been a night of celebrations for matriculants from independent schools across the country. And US President Barack Obama has hit back at Russia for meddling in the recent presidential election.
In the air, this could be it. Midon's getting under it. Yes, he is. That's a big win.
Mitchell Starc mops up at the MCG as Australia win a thriller against Pakistan by an innings and 18 runs. Good morning, you're watching Newsroom. I'm Kendall Makamate. Top story, 35 people have been injured, 3 of them critically, after a city-to-city bus overturned 18 kilometers from East London on the N2 towards King Williamstown in the Eastern Cape. Rescue crews are on the scene. Buffalo City Metro ambulances are transporting the injured to hospitals in and around East London. Details of the crash are unclear, but the bus seems to have gone off the road, slid down a decline and landed on its side. Traffic authorities have advised motorists to use alternative routes. We will bring more on that story as soon as our crew reaches the scene. And in other news that's making headlines, it's been a night of celebrations for matric students from independent schools across the country. The Independent Examination Board results that were released at midnight show a pass rate of 98.67%, up from 98.3% last year.
The Steyn twins spent Thursday trying to calm their nerves. Little did they know that 10 distinctions awaited them at the stroke of midnight. The sisters are amongst 87% of IEB matriculants eligible for university studies. More than 11,000 full-time and over 700 part-time candidates sat for the exams. The class of 2016 attained a 98.67% pass, an improvement on 2015's 98.30%. There was also a 2% increase in bachelor passes. The IB says the improvements can be attributed to a number of factors.
First of all, one can't take away from the fact that the learners themselves have worked exceptionally hard. They've tried all year and they've worked all year. And in fact, for the 12 years that they were at school, supported by a very good teaching cohort, well-managed schools with principals doing their best to keep the teachers and the learners on their tasks.
There's also been an improvement in maths and science passes. Mahlako Komane, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Meanwhile, the Education Quality Assurer, Umalusi, has approved the results of public schools despite a pending investigation into leaked exam papers in Limpopo and Gauteng. Umalusi says mathematics remains a stubborn problem with no progress over the last 3 years. The National Senior Certificate results will be released next week Thursday.
The culmination of a 12-year journey. About 815,000 pupils set for the National Senior Certificate examinations. Umalusi has given the exam process the thumbs up despite some irregularities.
We commend the department for running a successful and credible examination process, and accordingly we hereby approve the release of the 2016 results.
But deep concern about the performance in mathematics.
It's one subject where the performance is completely flat. It is alarming that since 2014, mathematical literacy is no longer the soft option.
Mathematics paper 2 was leaked in 2 schools in Limpopo. The results of pupils involved in the leaks will not be released pending investigations.
The exact number will be made known by the minister next week at the release of the results.
The 2016 results are expected to be released next Thursday. The Western Capes the following day. Mulimo Waone Motwa, SABC News, Pretoria.
President Jacob Zuma has stressed the importance of obtaining a good education, saying it's the only way that families can be freed from poverty. He was speaking at the 15th Jacob Zuma Education Trust Children's and Youth's Christmas Party.
Advocate Fiso Khumalo is amongst the 20,000 recipients helped by the Trust Fund since 1995. All beneficiaries are from poor backgrounds. Khumalo, who hails from Soweto, has 9 degrees behind his name.
In 2010, when the whole nation was celebrating the FIFA World Cup, I was financially excluded from the University of the Witwatersrand. I owed 52,000 rand. Imagine a young boy from Soweto going to Wits University, doing his first years, being kicked out of university, not because he's stupid, but because he cannot pay.
Newly qualified medical doctor Thabisile Mpofane is from an informal settlement at Inanda outside Durban. She says her family could not afford to send her to university as she was raised by a single mother who had to care for 7 children.
It was impossible for me to go to university, and that forced me to do part-time jobs to pay for my high school education. I want to thank God for His mercy.
President Jacob Zuma urged the business sector to employ qualified young people and also to help do fundraising for education.
I'm particularly directing this emphasis to business people. a contribution that you make to a child that is being educated by the trust and the foundation is in fact a national contribution of nation building.
The other graduates who attended qualified in fields of engineering, nursing, chemistry, and social sciences. The young children were all smiles and excited when the president handed them food parcels and gifts. Londi Khadebe, SABC News, Nkandla.
The Judicial Inspectorate of Correctional Services says the violence at St. Albans Maximum Prison in Port Elizabeth earlier this week is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to violence in South African prisons. 3 inmates were killed and over 20 injured in the riot. The inspectorate is to launch a full-blown investigation into overcrowding and gang activity in prisons.
The inspectorate gave an unusual mid-festive season briefing, an incident at Malmesbury prison underlying the gravity of the problem. Close to 2,000 kilos of dagga confiscated, smuggled over the security fence into the prison grounds, allegedly by gangs. Gang-related activities inside prisons are also on the rise.
Our staff need to be trained properly in terms of gangsterism. Our experienced officials are leaving the facilities.
Overpopulation and understaffing exacerbate the problem. For instance, this facility is currently accommodating 7,477 inmates, but normally it is supposed to be only accommodating 4,336. These cells were built for a maximum of 20 prisoners, but at any given time, more than 60 inmates are crammed into the confined space.
During the holiday period especially, our correctional and remand facilities are not adequately staffed. This exacerbates the constant complaint of understaffing in overpopulated facilities. An immediate solution must be sought where our prisons are run as 24-hour institutions providing both security and care at all times.
Correctional Services is conducting parallel investigations into violence and lawlessness in prisons. Manilis Tubase, SABC News, Cape Town.
Now, the Energy Department has announced that the petrol price will increase by between 48 and 50 cents a litre at midnight on Tuesday. The price of diesel will increase by up to 39 cents a litre, and eliminating paraffin prices will go up by 43 cents a litre. This comes on the back of stronger oil prices and a weaker rand. That's definitely news that's going to keep you all sober-minded. Be sure to fill up before New Year's Eve. Let's now take a break. We'll be back with your international stories and social media trends. Stay tuned to your favorite show, Newsroom.
SABC News Prime Time, live from Johannesburg. Police have made a massive drugs bust in Khayelitsha on the Cape Flats. They seized Mandrax tablets worth 26 million rand. The 529,000 Mandrax tablets seized were hidden in an underground storage facility. A scavenging insect, which has destroyed tomato fields abroad, has been spotted locally. Several organizations are working together to fend off this potential catastrophe. In 2008, it jumped the Mediterranean from Spain and caused havoc in 15 African countries.
If you've just joined us, welcome to Newsroom on Channel 404 and DSTV. In international news now, U.S. President Barack Obama has hit back at Russia for meddling in the recent presidential election. Obama ordered the expulsion of 35 Russian diplomats and imposed sanctions on 2 intelligence agencies who Washington believes were involved in the hack and release of Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton staff emails. He also ordered the closure of 2 Russian compounds inside the United States. It's not immediately clear whether President-elect Donald Trump, who has repeatedly praised Russian President Vladimir Putin, will try to roll back the measures once he takes office on the 20th of next month. And a nationwide ceasefire came into effect in Syria at midnight. The latest attempt to end nearly 6 years of bloodshed is being brokered by Russia and Turkey. It comes a week after Syrian government forces recaptured the country's second city, Aleppo, in a major blow to rebel forces. The deal does not include rebels from the radical Islamic State group or the former al-Qaeda affiliate, the Fateh al-Sham Front. Russia and Turkey are now pushing for peace talks between the government and the rebels to start soon. Now, the Center for Higher Education Transformation told the Fees Commission that free higher education will only benefit the rich and the middle class, as many poor students don't even qualify to go to the university. The director of CHAT told the Commission that of the matric of 100,000 pupils from poor communities, about 90% do not qualify. However, Dr. Kluti says about 75% of pupils who get exemptions and attend universities come from middle class and rich families. We spoke to Dr. Nico Kluti about his findings and presentation to the Fees Commission.
Despite the common sense assumption that you give that this whole thing is about the poor, it's actually not about the poor. It's about the middle class and the affluent middle class, as we call it, and the rich, who will benefit most from this. But it's not only the beneficiaries of it. This kind of system in other African countries and other developing countries have actually destroyed the university system. So ultimately, the real problem is that it leads to a low quality, overcrowding, poor higher education system. Currently, we are so pleased with Wade van Niekerk. Currently, South Africa has got the best higher education system in Africa. In the Shanghai ranking of the 500 best universities in the world, South Africa has got 4. Other African countries has got none. So I think we have to be very careful about how we deal with this issue and how we defend our best higher education system in Africa, and at the same time, of course, provide access to the poor. But you know, I think it's quite interesting that you started this day off with Marikana. You know what happened at Marikana was that there was disorganization and discoordination between the mine bosses and the police. And then there was disagreement and conflict between the mine workers. And it resulted in a disaster, which then ended in a commission. At least in higher education, we now have a commission before the time. But on Friday, the Treasury said that there's no money. They first said there's no money, then they said, well, I have to take money from somewhere else. Then, that same afternoon, despite what Bladen Zamande just now said on TV, he cancelled the press conference where he was going to announce that the CHE had recommended 6%. Then on Monday morning, Gwede Matash, the General Secretary of the ANC, comes out of the weekend meeting looking like a punch-drunk boxer. And he says, there's going to be no fees increase for this year till next year. I was in a meeting where there were some vice-chancellors. One of them stood up and said, well, we just can't run the system like this. And on the student side, on Friday, I was on a radio interview with a senior SASCO student, I think from Transkei area, where I said to her, what do you actually mean by free higher education? Do you really want the rich and the affluent middle classes to have free higher education? She said, no, we want free higher education for the poor. I said, but that's not what you're saying in public. She says, no, but there's different opinions. And then she switched into Xhosa. I mean, the issue is, free higher education is a thing that has got very different meanings. And actually, I don't think to sort this thing out is such a complicated thing. You know, I spoke to a senior person from school systems last night. In schooling, we've got a system of free schools, where the students don't pay any school fees. Then we've got a government system where people pay some money, and then we've got these exorbitant private institutions where the rich pays a fortune. Why can't we have a university system that works on the same principles? And in any case, the Derek Schwartz Commission had 2 years ago recommended that there be free higher education for the poor, which in NSFAS terms is around about 150,000, which is 13% of the student population. Now, we must ask the minister, why hasn't he implemented it from 2 years ago? I get the impression that there's a conflict being played out here between students who are dissatisfied with the government of the day. In the election, we had a certain group of people who didn't go and vote. Now we have another group of the population who's dissatisfied with their conditions. And the problem is, it's being fought out on the university campuses, and it's going to be very bad for the university. We've had exactly the same scenario in countries like Zimbabwe and other countries, where the conflict between the students and the government were fought out on the university campuses, with disastrous results for the universities.
I want to ask you about moving forward, because we seem to be stuck with the issue of free tertiary education right now. We don't have any way to resolve it, it seems, because for various reasons that you're well aware of. What is the way forward?
We've got to stop using the term. We've got to stop using the term. It's a totally unhelpful term. And as long as we use the term in that way, we're not going to go anywhere. And the media is helping it by talking like that.
What about developed countries?
We've got to be more specific about what we want.
So what you are saying is that we don't even know what we want.
No, the students, when you talk to the students, they've got different stories. And if you speak to people in government, they've got different stories.
What about other developed countries, Sweden, Norway, and so forth, where they have free models of free tertiary education? Can we implement that there in South Africa, or is that impossible according to you?
Well, you know, that is now like, this is like this thing of saying, till the second coming. To compare us with Norway or Sweden or one of these countries is totally unhelpful. You know, I have a part-time professorship at the University of Oslo. It's a society in which 97% of employment. It's a society where you pay 50% tax. There's no discussion. They just take 50% of your tax. So if everybody is working and everybody is paying tax, and you've got oil and salmon, then you can do that. And that same Norway is now beginning to talk about fees. I know that because I've got a post at the University of Oslo.
And who do you say in conclusion? In conclusion, Doc, we're running out of time. Who deserves then to get free education is what we're asking. What do you say? Who's deserving in South Africa then?
Well, it's not, you know, we need to have a system where for the poor there's a fee-free system. And that has been recognized all over the world. The thing of giving poor people loans that they've got to pay back after university doesn't work. It also disadvantages them. And currently, almost 80% of the students who are on the NSFAS system don't graduate. So that's a huge problem in terms of giving them free higher education. We need to select the poor better, and then we need to support them better so that they get through. And then we have this missing middle group, for whom we need to have a scheme where they either pay fees now or they pay taxes and they pay back. And there's a lot of systems around the world. The Australian one is probably the best, where no students pay fee, but they pay back from the day that they start working. And they pay sometimes up till they're 40 or 50. If they earn a lot of money, they pay back much more. If they earn a little bit of money, then they only pay a little bit. But for that, you need people to work. So after university, they must be employed. And we do have that in South Africa. And we've got a fairly good tax system. So it's totally unclear to me that the government is so lethargic and so unresponsive. And on the other hand, the students are so mixed that we can't actually sort out this problem. You know, this isn't rocket science.
Right, that was the very first of our interviews this day that we're bringing back to you on that fees must fall debate that's been raging across the country. Dr. Nico Tuti there talking to us. Now let's take a look at what's happening on social media. We start, of course, with this particular poll question that we asked you earlier. Will public schools ever be able to perform as well as private schools? Interesting enough, we've got 79% of you, of the 397 votes that we received so far, saying no, it will not happen. Whereas 21% have got hope and say yes, it will happen at some point. Now, some reactions from you. The coolest LSC says, take all public school teachers to sit for tests of the very subjects they teach. very interesting, might work. See whether they're actually as up-to-date as we'd need them to be if they're going to be teaching young minds. And Tobe Gondlovu, not easy because nobody listens to any suggestions given. 2019 may come with a new syllabus. Kwazba. True that. We've had so many syllabi in the last 2 decades that one doesn't know if one new one is coming or not. Yes, if they start using better teachers and pupils show more interest. And that's from comments. And Lynn M at SABC Newsroom, there's so many factors that influence the poor performances of most government schools. It is possible, but a great challenge. Yeah, pragmatic. Africa wants Tsonga. Private schools deprive themselves of the South African Democratic Teachers Union. Now, with that said, it's very interesting that we've got some other trends that have been actually doing the rounds right now on social media. We start with something called #MatricResults, and you can see that's exactly that. #MatricResults. Young students, matriculants celebrating, newspapers in hand, extremely happy. And the IAB says that they're proud of class of 2016. The results will be released next week in the new year. Then our much-loved Sportsman of the Year and Sports Star of the Year. Wait for Niekerk at Wade Dreamer is the ending of 2016 by getting engaged to girlfriend of 3 years, Chesney Campbell. The couple shared the news on Instagram yesterday. She said yes. Beautiful. And hundreds of thousands of people are talking about Carrie Fisher and her mother, Debbie Reynolds, who passed away within 1 day of each other this week. Disney hosted a Star Wars lightsaber vigil in honor of Carrie this week. Mother and daughter will have a joint funeral. It's a terribly sad story. And here's an image of Reynolds in her heyday. In her latter years, she was often the voice of much-loved cartoon characters such as the Spider in Charlotte's Web and Grandma Lulu in Rugrats. Actor William Shatner says Debbie Reynolds is one of the last of Hollywood royalty. It breaks my heart that she's gone. I'd hope my grieving was done for 2016. And moving on to a lighter note, the world is preparing for New Year's Eve tomorrow. And besides the fireworks, you'll have another reason to look to the skies. A comet discovered in 1948 is expected to appear close to the moon, but you will need a pair of binoculars to see it. Then, this is how United States President-elect Donald Trump is preparing, with trucks loaded with sand stationed outside his Trump Tower in case of a fire or errant fireworks or an attack. And comedic account 9gag says if you're not going to get a New Year's kiss, just remember Valentine's Day is only 45 days away, and you'll probably be alone for that too. And to end, there are always some nutters who are super excited about New Year's Eve, like this little kid. And fantastic. Those are the social media trends that we've got happening around us, around the world. Keep everything coming. We like looking at it. Let's look at some of your comments in the question of the day, where we've asked you what have been your most memorable moments for 2016. And Lekhasamollo, my memorable moment is when Jacob Zuma pays Nkandla money back. Happy New Year to the SABC team. Lekhasa, thank you so much. You've been a faithful comment and follower of the Newsroom team. Thank you. Happy New Year's to you too. Mpume Tlamini says, for me, none. It was 363 days of hell, but still hope my situation will change. Mpume, I tell you what, there's so many people that agree with you. I've been seeing so many memes and GIFs and people complaining about 2016. Doc Moses Bilane says, for me, pirates, racists coming out of the closet were bad, and Sundown's African Safari triumph was a memorable moment. And of course, Nomatemba Matu said, at SABC Newsroom, local government elections will never forget them. 2016, where the ANC lost the biggest metros. And our last one for now, Siafana Zulu Eshowe, one time. Mamelodi Sundowns, CAF Champions League 2016 recap. Fantastic. That it definitely stood out as something to remember for 2016. Now, I tell you what, a lot of people have been and will be talking about the CAF Champions League and Mamelodi Sundowns winning that one. Now, of course, we're also bringing you something else, which is our picture of the day. This one comes from Becca Laurie at Impeccable. and is captioned, Serena Williams is engaged to Alexis Ohanian. And they announced it on Reddit. Beautiful stuff. And our comment of the day comes from England's Barmy Army, at the Barmy Army, who says, 10,000 wickets now taken in Test cricket by LBW, only 4% of which have had Shane Watson as the victim. Hashtag South Africa versus Sri Lanka. Yes, a bit of a joke on that one, because you will remember that was Pradeep that trapped Hashim Amla on 48 after 53 balls to get the 10,000th Test wicket in the history of cricket. Now, of course, we're going to continue with our today's theme. Earlier on, you had Dr. Nico Kluti speaking, but now we're looking into that debate on the feasibility of free higher education. We had a discussion with Dr. Salim Vali, the Director for Centre for Education Rights and Transformation at the University of Johannesburg, who believes that free tertiary education is not possible, but South Africa can afford it.
As a society, we cannot afford an education system that perpetuates inequality, that maintains privilege, and does not fulfill the potential of our people. And I think it's imperative that the resources of our society need to be mobilized in order to give our citizens high quality education. The preamble of our Constitution is very clear on this. We need to fulfill the potential of our citizens. When I talk about education, I'm talking about early childhood development, public schooling, adult education, and tertiary. Education has to be seen as a public good, not as a business opportunity. So what we found at the Fees Commission, and there is this deficit of trust for very clear reasons. But the likes of Dr. Kluter, who I always find entertaining, but also a spectacular failure of imagination. What he is advocating is basically an elitist system. I found revealing what he had to say about Marikana. Nothing about the inequality that gave rise to the massacre in the first place. The super exploitation of workers in our country. And he has the same logic. It's a logic of privilege.
But how do we achieve that, Professor? Is it even possible, and where will that money come from?
Well, firstly, we have submitted our submission to the Fees Commission. It's a collective of students and academics. We have given 10 broad points. The first point is that our state contributes relative to other countries, including African countries, by the way, Brazil, Ghana, Senegal, and other countries like Brazil, contribute more money to higher education than our state. So that there's chronic underfunding. As a result, universities have to put together money from increasing student fees, and that has been going up, as well as corporations, bequests, third stream income. This perpetuates inequality in the education system. Many universities don't get the kind of support some universities get. Secondly, we say that we do have money. We always seem to have money for mega projects, for arms purchases, for stadia, for wasteful projects. And also, we have a situation that out of the 50,000 high net worth individuals who have an annual income of 7 million rand or an accumulated wealth of 70 million rand, just a small percentage of those individuals are registered taxpayers. If we tax them at the going rate, just 10,000 of this 50,000, we will have 37 billion a year. That is one way of doing this. There are many other creative ways. So there are concrete ways of addressing this. The other issue is, philosophically, we need to see higher education, quality higher education, as a public good. Dr. Klute talks about the ranking system, competitiveness, etc.
Because he's also talking about the rich that will benefit and not the poor.
You see, the rich will pay for higher education through a proper taxation system. At the moment, we have capital flight. We have the rich who are able to dodge paying tax. We have illicit financial flows. We don't have a tax system. The tax system must be reformed. I don't believe, you know, the National Treasury, I was part of the task team that talked about free higher education for the poor.
Yes.
That report was spiked by the National Treasury.
Why was that?
For 3 years, it was not made public until people demanded the report.
But Treasury now said that they don't have the money if there's no fee increase.
At least they are being honest now. We dispute the fact that there are limited resources. As I explained, we always seem to find money for wasteful mega projects, etc. And I believe I've shown, our submission shows that we can find the money. We also talk about public service, community service, service in public institutions after graduation, as a way of giving back, of the beneficiaries to give back to society.
But Professor, I think we also should be realistic. Everybody just can't walk into a university. There must be some deserving students because others are not deserving. So should there be a criteria for who gets free education, you think?
Well, of course, you know, all young people can't go to higher education, but I believe that if we focus on understanding the importance of public education from the lower levels, there is this idea of separating higher education from the rest of the education system. And I think that is a mistake. And of course, there are criteria for those who are able to attend universities, but finance should not be the criteria, because then we're perpetuating inequality over 20 years after the promises we made to the people of our country.
But is free tertiary education sustainable in the long run, Professor? You've cited a number of...
What we have today is untenable, it's unsustainable. The universities, South Africa, vice-chancellors as well as council chairs, the only reason that announcement was not made because what we have today is unsustainable. What is realistic and tenable is a conception of higher education as a public good that is not free in the sense that people don't pay, but people pay in a way which is fair, not through the user fees model, which is a neoliberal prescription which maintains inequality that we have today.
Now, finally, Professor, the Minister did indicate that we might have an answer in terms of the no-fee increase perhaps for 2017. What do you expect to come out of this at the end of the month?
Well, I think, you know, it is a short-term dilemma. I think many of us, those who agree with free education, we believe that there has to be very clear milestones. We don't believe that we will have free education overnight. But when I talk about the deficit of trust, is because for many people they see delaying tactics, etc., commissions which become toothless. So I think if there is honesty and sincerity and an understanding about higher education as a public good, not run as a business, as corporations, we will then make progress towards achieving, through progressive realization, which our Constitution in fact talks about over a period of time. But it has to be clear, there has to be milestones, and the end result should be a quality higher education system. Our people deserve that.
All right, now here we are. We're taking a look again at your comments on our poll for this morning, where we've asked you that particular question about whether you think the public schools will ever be able to perform as well as private schools. 79% of you still say no. 21% say yes. We've got 403 votes that are in already. Now let's have a look at what you've had to say on this particular matter. Ramme Kwa says, SABC Newsroom, fees must fall 2016 in 4 words. Yes, that's you recapping on your memorable moments for this year. We're hoping that we're also getting comments from you on our poll about private schools and public schools. And Ike is there, right? He said, why is there public and private anyway? Merge the two systems and the gap is bridged. Yes, a very straightforward, fairly simplistic view there, but let's see if anybody else picks up on that. Lebogang Chilwane at SABC Newsroom. When we students need 30% to pass matrics, never. Yes, 30% to pass matric. That is one of the challenges that these students come out with. And Speak Your Mind says, how can it be that when we don't have any faith in our public school system? Well, when your pass rate is 30% and you struggle in university and college, maybe that is what happens there. Speak Your Mind, speaking their mind. And it says we need to support our public schools more, then maybe the system will do better. Speak Your Mind, give us more ideas what you mean by support the public system more. Do you mean more teachers? Do you mean we need to get the schools to get their textbooks earlier? You need to let us know, because we like to hear what you've got on your mind. Speak Your Mind. Now, we also have some comments from you on our Facebook page. In fact, we've got news on our Facebook page. Police in Cape Town have arrested 2 suspects for being in possession of stolen copper cables. Police say a member of the stock theft unit, assisted by public order policing unit members, followed up on the information and busted the duo while they were driving on the N2 towards the city. Then also staying in Cape Town, police have been busy. They've confiscated illegal liquor at a house in Mitchell's Plain. More than 63 litres, mainly of beer, were taken by designated firearm and liquor control officers at a house in Siberian Way. There's going to be lots of dry throats in Mitchell's Plain over the weekend. And finally, this year's Independent Examinations Board's pass rate has increased from 98.3% last year to this year's 98.67%. Something to celebrate, that's an increase. In addition to this pass rate this year, top achievers post 5 full house distinction passes. These and other stories you can find on our Facebook page and SABC News website. Now we have a look at what's happening on the front pages of newspapers from around the globe. Starting in the United Kingdom, the Telegraph reports that Debbie Reynolds, a Hollywood star who's died at 84, had said outliving her daughter Carrie Fisher was her greatest fear, predicting she would not be able to survive the trauma. How tragic. Moving to China, the South China Morning Post says Beijing's crackdown on capital flight could be about to extend to Singapore, amid concerns that large sums of money may have been funneled out and off the mainland in violation of China's strict currency controls through casinos in the city-state of Singapore. And finally, in Israel, the Jerusalem Post reports that Palestinian reaction to the Obama administration's decision to abstain on a UN Security Council resolution critical of settlements last week was overwhelmingly positive. Now, carry on with our theme and focus for the day. Student protests continued for weeks, with several universities shutting down after the government did not respond to demands to provide free education for all. Efforts to resume lectures became an uphill battle. The student movement was divided on whether to resume lectures or not, leading to clashes with newly formed movement of #SaveWits. And at the root of the issue is the righteous indignation about the fact that academically deserving students are excluded from university, either initially or subsequently because they cannot pay their fees or living expenses.
Well, the movement has somehow put pressure on society, has created awareness regarding the problem of free education. It has mobilized students to acknowledge and be aware that indeed the system that we operate under is not assisting. It seeks to alienate us on the basis of finances. So we've indeed made some good stride in bringing society together. We've seen churches, we've seen parents, we've seen a whole structure of society coming into this play of discussing how can we indeed improve the issue of free education. And we've seen in certain universities that universities have somehow come closer in discussing with the students to say how can we alleviate or lessen the pressure or the burden that finances have in terms of a student tuition.
Well, you certainly have united all the universities, and some of the outcomes of that are not actually very positive, but we'll get to that. But I actually want to ask you, why is this Fees Must Fall movement insisting on free education now? It's almost as if you're insisting that this big financial demand should take place overnight, which in a lot of economies is just not possible.
Yeah, look, I think it is somehow misunderstood. What we want a commitment towards free education, to say that government is indeed agreeing with us, to say that free education should be a reality in South Africa. Then obviously from there onwards, we can then discuss to say that what is the roadmap we would implement to realize free education. So the now speaks to the commitment, to say that we rather not sit in further commissions which will release reports that speak to the same thing. We need a pronouncement so that indeed as government we are committed, and perhaps a law becomes passed through parliament or whatever form of legitimate acknowledgement for the call for free education.
Now, there's been a number of universities that have, their management has been called into a meeting to discuss the way forward within their own institution. And our president now has also created a ministerial task team. And we're still seeing students burning institution infrastructure. Now, how do you verify and justify the students that are burning properties, even though managements are meeting?
Yeah, look, we totally denounce violence and destruction of property. Hence, even at the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University, our struggle in the past 2 years cannot even account for a single window glass being broken. So we've totally remained peaceful. We've totally been committed. We don't associate militancy and also vandalism of property. So I can't necessarily speak on behalf of what's happening across the country, but in terms of what we've been doing at this university, we have not been conducting ourselves in that regard. What we've been doing, we've been having mass meetings with students, we've been meeting management with students collectively, because we were running away from these boardroom type of meetings whereby people are sitting in high floors discussing student issues, whereas the students on the ground don't necessarily have a voice in that regard. So what we've had continuously, I think about 7 of mass meetings whereby management has come to students, students have engaged management, and management has responded. So we have been having those engagements with the management. Fortunately, we also have a management that has been very much responding to us. But in terms of violence, we have no incidents of violence. We don't necessarily believe that violence will necessarily take us forward, because should free education be given, these very same buildings and libraries, lecture halls are the same infrastructure that we will be relying on to use.
Now, I believe that the Fees Must Fall movement is hoping for a breakthrough in the next few weeks. But how would you feel if this free education that you're fighting for now only actually gets implemented for perhaps the 16-year-old, 17-year-old high school students, and the students that are marching now lose their academic year? How would you feel?
Okay. Well, look, we must remember that Fees Must Fall started with the argument of saying also we need a zero-fee increment, and that argument is still valid even now in terms of that tuition must not go up. And the argument is also said that if then government is saying it cannot implement free education now, at least as a commitment we must go towards decreasing fees, meaning fees must be going down until such time that we can have free education. Then on the issue of perhaps it being implemented in years to come, the basis of this struggle is not necessarily a personal one, so that I'm doing it for myself only. We acknowledge that we can't accept for generations to come to face the similar challenge of having to prove that they are poor and therefore they deserve NSFAS, or having to be excluded from education on the basis of them not having sufficient funds. So this struggle is the struggle for those who are yet to come. Even some of the people that are championing Fees Must Fall are people who don't necessarily have to benefit from free education, but as a matter of principle, they acknowledge that a system that operates under the system that we have currently cannot continue operating as such. So it's not necessarily a struggle for the students of 2016, but it's a struggle for South African students as a whole, be it a child in preschool that is a child of a domestic worker or a policeman. That child must know that this struggle is a struggle for them. Hence, even in our engagements, we've been engaging high school students, we've been engaging students in primary school, say that this struggle is not only a struggle about us, but it's a struggle about yourselves as well. And therefore, there are also ways in which you can make a voice, so that should the time come whereby you are faced with having to enter university, at least one of the least prior concerns you should have is your concerns regarding how will you fund your education.
There you have it. Fees Must Fall focus has been raging. These are all the debates that raged throughout the year. We had them all in studio earlier on, and as you can tell, very many different views being brought to the fore. Let's now take a look at your comments on that question, on that poll that we've got for you about public schools and private schools. Will they ever be able to perform in the same manner? 21% say no, 79% are saying no, it's not going to happen ever. And we've got 416 votes that have come in, and the votes tally keeps going up, but the no's stay around the 80% mark. Now, we've got one or two comments that we're going to share with you. Patrick Kwetle says, free education means availability of equipment and educators. Yes, break it down for us, because some of us don't actually quite understand what free education entails. But yes, it's equipment and educators being made available for free. Likhasa Mollo, yes, I do believe that public schools and private schools will achieve something big. I don't expect fail. Likhasa, really love your positivity right there. Sinetemba, teachers, parents, communities, government and kids are not pulling in one direction. It will take time and results to improve. And every time, that's right, it's a generation that gets lost through the cracks. Tulani Bonani, poor healthcare systems and unemployment are the primary reasons for poor quality education in public schools. It's all intertwined, all leads to each other. Now we're going to take a short break. When we come back, you'll still be watching Newsroom. Stay close.
Now this is Trends, of course, your one-stop serving of all that's juicy and trending in the world of entertainment and showbiz. My name, of course, is Refill Wemwilo.
I'm Dr. Sello Mutaung, and this is Our Talk.
A very good morning and welcome to Media Monitor. I'm your host, Alicia Jali.
My name is Dumila Matez.
My name is Mpo. What time is it? It's question time.
For your daily dose of current affairs, tune in to the SABC News Channel.
The Orange River is South Africa's major river. It rises in the Drakensberg in Lesotho, known as the Senqu River. It flows through Free State via Van der Kloof Dam, Eastern Cape into Gariep Dam, Northern Cape and Richterveld Transfrontier Park, which is part of Namibia. Orange River is 2,090 kilometers long. It finally flows into the Atlantic Ocean at Alexander Bay.
Gauteng remains the leading business and leisure tourism destination in Southern Africa. With a vibrant urban city vibe and new and exciting tourism experiences tailor-made for the African city dweller. With that in mind, Gauteng Tourism took their trendiest brands, experiences and people to the city of Gaborone, not just to showcase what Joburg has to offer, but to expose the business owners to new possibilities and get an exchange of ideas brewing between the young African tourism and brand leaders from the two countries.
We're here with Gauteng Tourism and we pushing the GP lifestyle. We are showcasing a snippet of what we do in Joburg or in Gauteng with some of the brands or products that we have. Like you can see, we've got the shopping festival, we've got a bit of low crate market, pieces, bucket heads, Soweto outdoor adventure, and the vibe, you know. So we're here to create like a bit of ambience and showcase what we all about.
One of the good things about the Botswana market is that there is simulation. There is that connection between South Africa and Botswana. There's similarities in terms of our cultural experiences, and that's what we need to encourage in the continent. Regional economic integration of experiences. You should be able to move from Gauteng via Sun City and come here into Botswana seamlessly, because tourists don't know borders. They don't like borders. They want to experience seamless travel experiences. An initiative of this nature helps us in driving that message. We are hoping to collaborate some of our designers in Johannesburg with designers in Maputo, and through fashion, music, and lifestyle, we are able to break the boundaries and showcase what we have as the region. Ultimately, at the end of this activation, we are hoping for an increased visitation into Gauteng, especially Gauteng township experiences.
I just wanted to give people in Botswana just a little taste of what Soweto has to offer. Most townships around the country don't necessarily have any of these activities. So bringing the go-karts out here, it's one of our most popular rides that we have right now outside of the quad bikes. So, I mean, a lot of people are getting introduced to go-karts for the first time. They've seen a lot of the quad bikes, but they haven't seen the go-karts. So I thought, let's introduce something that's a different product that we have out here. We're an outdoor adventures business. I mean, we do team buildings, as you saw earlier on. We're doing tug of war. We're doing the sack races, jumping up and down. So I thought, just a little bit of something different. Tug of war, sack races, go-karts where people can sit on and take pictures on, and just give them that feeling and sensation of being behind the wheel.
It's been tried and tested in Soweto, and Gautengers know for sure that there is no better way to explore any city or town than on a bicycle. We took to the streets of Gaborone to promote this idea and to explore and find out what there was to see and do. The 5-kilometer ride was worth all the hard work as we arrived at the 3 Dikgosi monument, which sits majestically in the center of the city and is said to be the most visited tourism site in Botswana. The statues depict 3 Dikgosi, Gama III of Bangwato, Sibili I of the Bakwena, and Batweng I of Bangwaketsi. The monument features 5.4-meter tall bronze statues of the 3 Dikgosi, who played important roles in Botswana's independence. The 3 chiefs traveled to Great Britain in 1895 to ask Joseph Chamberlain and Queen Victoria to separate the Buchananland Protectorate from Cecil Rhodes' British South Africa Company.
Win a brand new Kia Picanto with SABC TV license. You can also win an all-expenses-paid trip to the Last Dance concert in Richards Bay on the 31st of December 2016. To win, SMS your valid TV license number to 33175 as many times as you can. SMSs cost R1.50, T's and C's apply. It's another great SABC summer. It's all about you.
The Orange River is South Africa's major river. It rises in the Drakensberg in Lesotho, known as the Senqu River. It flows through Free State via Van der Kloot Dam, Eastern Cape into Gariep Dam, Northern Cape and Richterveld Transfrontier Park, which is part of Namibia. Orange River is 2,090 kilometers long. It finally flows into the Atlantic Ocean at Alexander Bay.
According to the report, some people believe that all healthcare and education will be better for the next generation.
Young people want a good life, should stay in their countries rather than immigrate.
Kenya is the world's leading exporter of black tea, but oversupply and variable weather conditions often lead to global price fluctuations.
Tea factories now need 20 hectares for specialty tea products to be licensed.
The South African cricket team has clinched a 2-0 Test series win over Australia on the 4th day of the second Test in Hobart. Now the Proteas recorded an emphatic victory, winning by an innings and 80 runs with more than a day to spare.
Stay tuned to News Today from 3 to 5:30 p.m. here on SABC News.
It's now 10 o'clock Central African time on Friday, the 30th of December 2016. This is Newsroom. Good morning to you. I'm Kendall Makhamate, and I'll be with you until midday today. We're coming to you live from our headquarters in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, Gauteng, in South Africa. Now, this morning, our focus has been on the Fees Must Fall protests that dominated most of the university campuses around the country. And with that said, we brought you a few of the interviews we've had on that matter. And with just 2 days to go till the end of the year, we're asking you today, what have been your most memorable moments of 2016? Good or bad? Now, we've got some comments from some of you. We'd love to share them with the rest of our viewers. And this is what you are saying. Ike says, fees must fall, students' movement. Yes, now that definitely top line, the headlines. Lekhasa Mollo says, my memorable moments when Jacob Zuma paid Nkandla money back. Happy New Year to SABC team. Happy New Year to you, Lekhasa Mollo. We also have another one from Umpume Dlamini who says, for me, none. It was 363 days of hell, but I still hope my situation will change. Umpume, positivity. We're hoping that your situation will change, that the next time we speak to you about anything, you're giving us good news about what's happening to you. Doc Moses Vilani says, for me, pirates, racists coming out of the closet were bad, and Sundown's African Safari Triumph was a memorable moment. Absolutely stuck out that one. Nomatemba Matuse says local government elections will never forget them. 2016, where the ANC lost the biggest metros. There you have it. Comments that we've had from you on your memorable moments from 2016. Now, as always, we've also conducted an online poll where we're asking you if public schools will ever be able to perform as well as private schools. And throughout the course of the morning, we've got over 400 votes from you, and some 79% saying no, it's not going to ever happen that public schools and private schools will get the gap bridged, and 21% being a little more positive. Now, you can let us know your thoughts on our Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on our Facebook page. 424 votes we've got so far. Keep them coming. Okay, we now getting straight into the headlines at this hour. It's been a night of celebrations for matriculants from independent schools across the country. And United States President Barack Obama has hit back at Russia for meddling in the recent presidential election. And the Proteas going to the last day of the test against Sri Lanka at St. George's Park Point, looking for a few quick wickets to snuff out the tourist fire. Now, we'll be bringing you a bit of a sneak peek into that match at St. George's a little later in the sports segment. For now, top stories. Traffic authorities say the scene of the accident of the overturned bus near East London on the road towards King Williamstown has been cleared up, and traffic is flowing normally. 2 people have been admitted to hospital in a critical condition and 3 others serious. The 30 other passengers aboard the bus have been treated on the scene and at hospital. The cause of the accident is not known, and an investigation is being launched. In other stories, it's been a night of celebrations for matric students from independent schools across the country. The Independent Examination Board results that were released at midnight show a pass rate of 98.67%, up from 98.3% last year.
The Steyn twins spent Thursday trying to calm their nerves. Little did they know that 10 distinctions awaited them at the stroke of midnight. The sisters are amongst 87% of IEB matriculants eligible for university studies. More than 11,000 full-time and over 700 part-time candidates sat for the exams. The class of 2016 attained a 98.67% pass, an improvement on 2015's 98.30%. There was also a 2% increase in bachelor passes. The IB says the improvements can be attributed to a number of factors.
First of all, one can't take away from the fact that the learners themselves have worked exceptionally hard. They've tried all year and they've worked all year. And in fact, for the 12 years that they were at school, supported by a very good teaching cohort, well-managed schools with principals doing their best to keep the teachers and the learners on their tasks.
There's also been an improvement in maths and science passes. Mahlako Komane, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Meanwhile, the Education Quality Assurer Umalusi has approved the results of public schools despite a pending investigation into leaked exam papers in Limpopo and Gauteng. Umalusi says mathematics remains a stubborn problem with no progress over the last 3 years. The National Senior Certificate results will be released next week, Thursday.
The culmination of a 12-year journey. About 815,000 pupils set for the National Senior Certificate examinations. Umalusi has given the exam process the thumbs up, despite some irregularities.
We commend the department for running a successful and credible examination process, and accordingly we hereby approve the release of the 2016 results.
But deep concern about the performance in mathematics.
It's one subject where the performance is completely flat. It is alarming that since 2014, mathematical literacy is no longer the soft option.
Mathematics paper 2 was leaked in 2 schools in Limpopo. The results of pupils involved in the leaks will not be released pending investigations.
The exact number will be made known by the minister next week at the release of the results.
The 2016 results are expected to be released next Thursday. The Western Capes the following day. Mulimo Waone Motwa, SABC News, Pretoria.
Staying with the same theme, President Jacob Zuma has stressed the importance of obtaining a good education, saying it is the only way that families can be freed from poverty. He was speaking at the 15th Jacob Zuma Education Trust Children and Youth's Christmas Party.
Advocate Sfiso Khumalo is amongst the 20,000 recipients helped by the Trust Fund since 1995. All beneficiaries are from poor backgrounds. Khumalo, who hails from Soweto, has 9 degrees behind his name.
In 2010, when the whole nation was celebrating the FIFA World Cup, I was financially excluded from the University of the Witwatersrand. I owed 52,000 Rand. Imagine a young boy from Soweto going to Wits University, doing his first years, being kicked out of university, not because he's stupid, but because he cannot pay.
Newly qualified medical doctor Thabisile Mpofane is from an informal settlement at Inanda outside Durban. She says her family could not afford to send her to university as she was raised by a single mother who had to care for 7 children.
It was impossible for me to go to university, and that forced me to do part-time jobs to pay for my high school education. I want to thank God for His mercy.
President Jacob Zuma urged the business sector to employ qualified young people and also to help do fundraising for education.
I'm particularly directing this emphasis to business people. A contribution that you make to a child that is being educated by the Trust and the Foundation is in fact a national contribution of nation building.
The other graduates who attended qualified in fields of engineering, nursing, chemistry, and social sciences. The young children were all smiles and excited when the president handed them food parcels and gifts. Londi Khatebe, SABC News, Nkandla.
And news that will put brakes on your celebrations this weekend. The Energy Department has announced that the petrol price will increase by between 48 and 50 cents a litre at midnight on Tuesday. The price of diesel will increase by up to 39 cents a litre, and eliminating paraffin prices will go up by 43 cents a litre. This comes on the back of stronger oil prices and a weaker rand. In the meantime, the Judicial Inspectorate of Correctional Services is to launch a full-blown investigation into increasing violence, drugs and dangerous weapons in prisons. The Inspectorate says the recent incident in St. Albans Maximum in Port Elizabeth is just the tip of the iceberg. 3 inmates died and several were injured during a violent brawl.
As the Inspectorate gave an unusual mid-festive season briefing, an incident at Malmesbury prison underlying the gravity of the problem. Close to 2,000 kilos of dagga confiscated, smuggled over the security fence into the prison grounds, allegedly by gangs. Gang-related activities inside prisons are also on the rise.
Our staff need to be trained properly in terms of gangsterism. Our experienced officials are leaving the facilities, and we need them to train the younger ones to deal especially with the issue about intelligence of gangsterism.
Overpopulation and understaffing exacerbate the problem. For instance, this facility is currently accommodating 7,477 inmates, but normally it is supposed to be only accommodating 4,336. That means it is overcrowded by more than 2,500. These cells were built for a maximum of 20 prisoners, but at any given time, more than 60 inmates are crammed into the confined space.
JIX has previously reported and indicated the unsatisfactory situation where, during the holiday period especially, our correctional and remand facilities are not adequately staffed. This exacerbates the constant complaint of understaffing in overpopulated facilities. An immediate solution must be sought where our prisons are run as 24-hour institutions providing both security and care at all times.
Investigations will include deaths in correctional services facilities, including that of Ananias Mate.
Of course, his death must also be investigated. It is understandable that inmates can die for medical reasons, and especially in a case where surgery has happened and apparently failed. But somewhere in the media there were reports that his initial complaints were not taken seriously. One must look into that.
Correctional Services is conducting parallel investigations into violence and lawlessness in prisons. Manilisi Tubase, SABC News, Cape Town.
Now, back to the other story that's been headlining this entire morning, in fact, most of this week, is that on the results, the matric results being released. We all know that the public school results will be released on the 4th and 5th of next week. But right now, we've got the IEB results that have been released. And SABC reporter Stefina Komane is at St. John's College in Houghton to capture the mood and excitement. We'll now go live to Stefina, who's standing by to chat to us. We also hope she's got 1 or 2 learners who are going to be sharing their experiences with us. Stefina, good morning to you. The situation at St. John's must be jubilant.
It's definitely a jubilant occasion here at St. John's College. We got here earlier on to find parents and students coming in to collect the statements of their results. And indeed, I do have 2 learners at the college that have done really, really well for themselves. I have with myself Sango Sokiwa and also Brandon McKenzie. They are one of the top achievers here at the college and also within the IEB examination. For example, Sango got a top 5 award for being in the top 5% of the IEB examinations in 5 subjects. But I think what's also quite remarkable about Sango was that he's an all-rounder. He had so much going on throughout the year, but he managed to somehow come out with 8 distinctions. Sango, can you just, thank you so much for talking to us.
Yes, hello.
Sango, can you just please tell me, you are indeed an all-rounder, deputy head boy, nowadays deputy head boy. You managed to get 8 distinctions. At one point, you were the junior mayor for the city of Johannesburg. You had a campaign going on at school, Wake Up to Your Privilege, I hear. It's also about privilege and also racism. But in all of that, and also congratulations, you've also just been awarded the Ellen Gray Scholarship. Can you just please tell us, what's the balancing act? How do you manage to have so much going on outside of the academics, but still manage to keep up?
It's actually quite interesting. I find that because I have so much on my plate, it sort of forced me to learn time management skills. And so, yeah, it sort of forced me to get things in order. And from that point, I don't know, it just all worked out for me.
And can you tell me, you earlier were telling me that your 8 distinctions were just not I got up one day in matric and decided that I was going to get 8 distinctions, but it's been a journey for you from around about grade 5, where you made the decision that you wanted to be an achiever and that you wanted to do your very best in your academics?
Yes, that is the case. It was about constant work, not just piling up all my work before exams.
And can you just please tell me your plans for next year? What is it? What contribution do you think eventually you want to put out to society based on what you want to study and so forth?
Well, I'm planning to go to UCT next year, studying actuarial science. But in the end, or in the long run, I don't know, I see myself doing something that will improve the situation here in South Africa and hopefully Africa as a whole. That is my aim.
And can you tell me, I know that you've also been, you are applying to some Ivy League institutions, so South Africa is just not the end for you?
Well, yes, I'd like to get some degree from an Ivy League institution such as Stanford or Harvard, be it my undergrad or my postgrad. So I am applying at the moment.
Thank you so much and congratulations, Brandon. And we also have Brandon McKenzie, a very, very special person because Brandon has a heart condition. But in spite of that, Brandon came out of the IB examinations with 9 distinctions. Brandon, can you just please tell us about your journey that was matric and your schooling year?
Well, starting from the beginning of my high school career, I was diagnosed with this heart condition, and I mean, it limited me in multiple ways. I was quite a keen sportsman, and I had to give that up. And so to compensate for that, I mean, I picked up music and I decided to focus on my academics. And it's been challenging because I've had a couple of operations to try and cure my condition, except it has been unsuccessful. So, I mean, I've been living in somewhat fear for the last few years, and it's really tough. But I've managed to deal with it, and I've put my priorities straight. And this year has actually been a really good year in terms of my health. I've been rather stable, and so I've managed to achieve what I've wanted to.
And also next year, what are the plans there?
So I'd like to study mechanical engineering, and preferably at the University of Pretoria.
So I see for you, Brandon, more than anything, it's really been a mind game just to get yourself in a certain space?
Yes, certainly. I mean, I've had to develop some inner strength to cope with it, and, you know, to put some things above others, as well as realizing what's important, and also to know my limits. Where I can't do something, I should rather pick up something else rather than regretting it. Yes.
And where were the 9 distinctions? What are they for?
So, well, it's a lot of subjects to list, but I took 10 subjects, so it's all of them except Advanced Program Afrikaans, including AP Maths, French, Science, Geography, Maths, English, Afrikaans, and ALO. So, yes.
Well, gentlemen, all the best for your future endeavors, and thank you so much. As you've just heard for yourselves, the great work that has gone into these 8 and 9 distinctions from these 2 gentlemen that I'm standing with. But I think also more importantly, as Brandon has highlighted, that it was a case of getting into the right frame of mind. And also Sango was talking about juggling and knowing how to prioritize his time. We will also later on be coming to you from another school to talk to some more top achievers. Thank you. Back to you.
That was reporter Stefano Komane giving us some beautiful news from two top achievers, two young men who've got a future ahead of them that is as bright as the stars can be. Well done and congratulations to both of them. And I was certainly hoping that we get more of that from Stefano during the course of the day. Now, in other news, the Hawks have arrested 3 traffic officials at Brits in the northwest. They're facing charges of corruption, fraud and bribery. Members of the Hawks stormed into the Brits Traffic Department building unexpectedly and arrested the 3 suspects, including a female traffic official. The 3 were allegedly spotted taking bribes from traffic offenders. The 3 traffic officers are expected to appear at the Brits Magistrates Court on 3 charges of bribery, corruption and fraud. The case of assault against murder-accused Mark Zinde has been postponed to the 11th of January. He appeared briefly in the Vereniging Magistrates Court on Thursday. He faces a charge of assault for allegedly attacking his father last month.
A subdued-looking and leg-shackled Mark Zinde. The 23-year-old allegedly attacked his father with the glass. Dr. Lebohang Mohale Manoto had allegedly taken him in after he'd been released on bail for allegedly killing his mother, Hope Zinde, a former SABC board member, in June. For the family, it's been a hard Christmas.
It's the first festive season without my sister and Waruna's mum, Hope, and of course without him as well, Waruna. Because it's very difficult for us as a family to have to spend our festive season, the very first one, without the 2 people that we love and deeply care about.
His mental well-being is a priority for the family.
We are of the opinion that he's not himself, and the sooner he gets attended to from a medical point of view, I think the happier we will be as a family. But yeah, it's a sad time for us.
His lawyer wants the murder and assault cases to be heard jointly.
So for the formal centralization from authorization from the Director of Public Prosecutions, then on the 24th of January we will appear back in Brits, in the regional court there. We will receive the indictment and we will also bring the application that he be referred back to Westkopje Psychiatric Hospital.
Mark Zinde remains in custody. Nozintombi Mia, SABC News, Vereniging.
Police have listed the management of the local government elections and the violence accompanying the Fees Must Fall campaign amongst their 2016 successes. A high-level delegation embarked on a festive season meet and greet in Cape Town.
Mingling with residents and visitors, hoping to assure them they will be safe over the festive season. Several suspects were nabbed in overnight police operations around the city.
We have 16 people arrested overnight who have committed murders. We have 4 people that were on our wanted list that have been arrested. We have 27 people arrested for rape-related cases. So we are not just talking of arrest for drinking in public and so on.
Police say officers will work within the law to ensure safety at beaches, in malls and any unrest situations such as those witnessed on campuses.
We started 2016 with that challenge. We went closer to the end of the year with the challenge. You know that far too many people were uncomfortable with the police presence in the institutions, but what invited us to the institutions was criminality that had taken over.
Beachgoers and holidaymakers have welcomed the strong police presence.
I think what they can do is more volunteers, more people that can volunteer for them and assist them.
Today it was quite awesome because it was the first time that I've experienced this. With our children allowed, it felt great.
The way we see the police is that then we feel much comfortable if they show us their presence.
Meanwhile, 4 suspects have been arrested in connection with the murder of a Malmesbury policeman this week. 6 officers have been murdered in the province since the end of last month. A Rylands businessman who was reported kidnapped last month has been found in Thornton. Vanessa Puna, SABC News, Cape Town.
Right, and history experts and fans will be happy about this news. The Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals has urged pet owners to take precautionary measures to ensure that their animals are safe during the festive season. The call comes as many residents prepare to celebrate the start of the new year with fireworks. Residents have been urged to consider animals that are left traumatized by the sound of exploding fireworks.
Try and plan your holiday or your holiday period in advance. Try and, by all means, to get someone to look after your pet. Be with it, physically be with your pet when you're away at the party or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Keep the animal indoors in a safe environment, where it can't really escape or hurt itself. Try your best to, comfort the pet, reassure it that it's safe. It's a very traumatic experience for them.
It is.
It's an ongoing thing throughout the whole night, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we do know that there are those pills for dogs and cats to actually calm them a little bit down.
Yes.
Where can the owners get hold of those pills?
Look, mostly those kind of medications, sedatives, you have to actually approach a vet or a qualified animal doctor.
You can't just go over the counter.
I'm afraid not. No, it's not one of those things you can just get from a pharmacy and dose your pet with it, because it might not be safe. It might have a worse effect actually on the animal.
Yeah.
So you have to consult with a professional.
Yeah, Gideon, talk to us about the incidents, last year's incidents. How many people's pets got lost?
Gosh, I can't even begin to explain the numbers. I don't have a figure, but from our side in Johannesburg, we had, our kennels were full. Our entire facilities were full with lost animals. Our inspectors, our colleagues were constantly on the road trying to collect them from the street. Some other animals, they got stuck in razor wire.
Yeah.
Some other animals actually die just of shock altogether.
That was cruelty to animals.
Small birds and, different kinds of animals actually die outright from shock. And I don't think people also realize that. It doesn't just affect the dogs and cats, it affects all the animals.
Yeah, but we've also learned that the High Court actually granted SPCA an interdict on the usage of fireworks in Ekurhuleni. Surely this must be quite a victory for you guys.
It's very exciting, and we are very proud for that. It did happen in the Kempton Park district, so we're also trying to push for other districts to also get involved and take into consideration, what the harmful effects it has on animals, in their area, and wild animals and people's pets. It's a very big breakthrough for us as a movement.
Yeah, and I would like to believe that precautions will vary from one pet to another.
Yes.
The way that your dog would get traumatized would differ from the way your pet would.
Yes, absolutely. Look, some dogs are indoor dogs. They might be used to being inside. In this country, we have a culture of keeping the dogs outside a lot. But they do need to be monitored. They do need to have some kind of supervision, someone that can check in on them. Wherever they're staying, it must be, very secure so that they can't escape.
Yeah.
What happens with many animals is they'll try and force themselves out of the yard just so that they can run away from that sound, and resulting in getting stuck in the fence, getting stuck in barbed wire. I've seen a dog that got stuck in, burglar bars. Unfortunately, it died there as well, and it's really a big challenge for all pet owners, and not only pet owners. Like I said before, though, there's wild animals to take into consideration.
Now, the safety of journalists came under the spotlight during the 2016 student protests. Journalists covering the Fees Must Fall protest were harassed and threatened. Now, SABC Newsroom program was pulled off air during a live broadcast. Student formations also reacted to violence against journalists while on duty. Earlier, we talked to SRC President at Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University, Nicholas Nyati. But firstly, SABC journalist Griselda Lewis told us her personal experience while covering student protests. She will be speaking to us, and now we'll let you know how that goes.
It's been extremely difficult covering the Fees Must Fall or Free Education Now protests in comparison to the way that we were able to cover them the last time around. You know, this time journalists really found themselves at the centre of threats, found themselves at the centre of being pulled off air while we're doing a live broadcast. I was that particular journalist where we had one of the students simply pull out the cable from our camera without absolutely no explanation. So, you know, it's since last night, and I mean, this is as fresh as last night, outside the Doornfontein campus of the University of Johannesburg, we saw journalists come under attack there. The pictures are quite shocking. One of the interns from one of the broadcast media was also hurled with a rock.
Yeah, we have some of those pictures now.
That's right. So it's been exceptionally difficult really trying to do our jobs to portray exactly what the facts are about this particular incident and not get flack from the students and from the other sectors as well. But ours in the majority, as always, should be, Yevon, was to report the facts of what's happening, but certainly some students seem to think that the media has got its own role to play in what they've termed as bias.
Now, journalists talk amongst each other. It doesn't really matter what organisation you work for. What's the kind of chatter amongst the journalists right now?
At some point, even there'd really been a discussion, perhaps to chat to the editors of various organisations to decide whether we are going to continue with the coverage of these protests because of the manner of which journalists had felt. They felt that if you portrayed, for example, there'd been a time when we'd marched through the Johannesburg CBD and you had a Wits University bus that was driving past the protesting students, and then you had a group that literally asked the students who were in that bus to get out. So I was doing a live broadcast right next to that vehicle, and obviously you have the visuals rolling. A simple portrayal of that truth, of that fact, which is unfolding, which you can clearly see because the camera does not lie. That then you're hurled with all sorts of insults, all sorts of abuse, but we've continued to do our jobs. Last night, I think, was really what shocked many journalists, and many are saying there needs to be some talks that needs to be held with either the students about what their concerns are, what are they unhappy about, the manner in which...
I want to show you something quickly, because we're running a poll, because on social media, one of the things where we've picked up is this statement that students are saying the media is misrepresenting the student protests. Now, at the moment our poll stands, they say, yes, the media is misrepresenting this, and I think we're just over the 100 mark with regards to votes. So it's fairly significant, this picture. What do you say about what the students are saying? Look, it's important
to gauge. It's very important to gauge what how students believe we're doing our jobs. And the figures themselves, look, I cannot speak for every single media house. I can only speak for the manner in which we have been able to do our jobs as journalists at the SABC. What we have done is covered the story with the simple facts, with the pictures as we see them, less talk, but the visuals to speak for themselves.
Could it be an element, when we talk about attacks on journalists and threats and all that, could it be a level of ignorance amongst the rank and file? We're not 100% sure of what the role of journalists are within the structures of society.
Ours is simply to inform, entertain and educate, and I don't think there's anyone in this day and age who does not understand that. If you have a grievance with a particular media house and you feel that you have not been properly treated or the story itself has not been... There are channels to do that. There's nothing that can ever justify violence. And I think the minute we start accepting that, we can just hurl stones at journalists while they're doing their jobs, that certainly does become a problem. We have seen the correspondence that we've received from many journalists who are saying we simply cannot go on this way. But there's no justification. If you have a problem with the manner in which the SABC journalist has covered a particular story, there are channels to follow.
First and foremostly, give us your reaction to the violence that is directed against or at journalists, rather.
As an SRC and also personally as an individual, I condemn all violence, whether it's by students or to students, by journalists or to journalists. And also, most recently, I condemn all of the violence that has been happening, initiated by the police officers.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think, though, journalists have become targets of these protests, covering and informing the public about what's happening on campuses?
To be quite honest, it's a complex issue. I think there's many reasons. I'll make you a prime example at our own institution. Journalists would come and they would cover the story. And when students would say they must leave, I would always ask them why. And they would say that, no, journalists only come here when you're banning things. Journalists only come here when we are protesting. They never come here when we are hungry. They never come here when we're having peaceful sit-ins. Other students raise various issues to say students misquote us when they report. Personally, I've experienced this. Last week, I won't name the newspaper, but they wrote that I said all white people, we must shut down all white people's businesses. Now, I've never said that, but it then comes back to how you as an individual act. Personally, I followed the protocol to contact the newspaper, and I asked them to say, look, you must apologize. The same way you misquoted me, you must apologize in the newspaper and say that we misquoted Nicholas here. Now, other students, because of the frustration, they resort to violence, which is wrong, and I totally condemn it. At NMMU, we recently experienced a situation where journalists were held hostage. I was there. I was part of the people who were held hostage by few students. Yes. Now, even when the reports come out, it does not say that a few students held journalists hostage. It says NMMU students, meaning the broader community, held journalists hostage, which was not the case, you know. So I believe that although journalists want to sell stories, but we must try and meet students halfway, because we must understand that students are frustrated. Everyone seems to be against them. It's the journalists who seem to be against them. It's the university management who seems to be against them. It's also other students and parents who want universities to open that seem to be against them. Now, students have the mentality that everyone is out to get them. And I think that's what is sparking the harassment or the violence towards journalists.
Right now, just a quick note to correct. SABC Newsroom was in fact not taken off air. It was our journalist on site who had her crossing to us disrupted by someone pulling a cable from the camera. Now, violence became the order of the day during various Fees Must Fall protests, and no one was spared from students themselves, police, private security guards, and random looting of business premises. The safety of journalists covering protests came under the spotlight after they were attacked on various incidents. The Institute for the Advancement of Journalism has developed a training program on how journalists should conduct themselves while covering hostile and violent situations. Newsroom spoke to the chairperson for that institute, Amina Frenze.
I think the situation is very volatile and quite out of control, and I think everyone is looking for a solution. Journalists are very important witnesses to events and what is happening, and that is what they're trying to do. Reflect what is happening as fairly and as freely as possible. And unfortunately, that has not been possible for various reasons. Some of the areas, as you know, no-go areas, and some of the areas are really hostile and dangerous environments. And it has just become that way. It might not have started out that way, but you know, as I said, it's a volatile situation, and you have rocks flying and stones flying. And, of course, at the moment, there are some of the perpetrators of these, well, I would say unruly behavior by some of the students. Let's face it. They don't want to be identified. They don't want their parents, their peers, and everyone in society to identify them, see who they are. So, as a result, to some extent, journalists are targeted because we bring the pictures live, you know, with social media, with the advent of technology and things like that. These things can be done live, and it's right then, you can't deny it.
Now, we live in the most dangerous time in our history to be a journalist, not just in South Africa, I think anywhere in the world right now. We see killings of journalists in their dozens year after year now, and it's become more and more important. Tell us a little bit what you think about it, and then about the program to get journalists to maybe understand this process a little bit better.
Well, as you've indicated in your introduction, the Institute does conduct training for the safety of journalists and so on. But every environment is different. One of the trainings that we conducted is the hostile environment awareness training, or HEAT. And we really incorporate as much as possible that we can in a generic sense. Look, every situation is different in every country, in every environment. Like I say, a peaceful environment can become hostile all of a sudden. But incorporated in there is, how do you negotiate crowds? A bit of martial arts, some demonstration in the field also.
Martial arts?
Yeah, sure, exactly.
Okay, so you need to be able to handle yourself in a big group.
Yeah, in a basic way. In a basic way, if you can, and if you're faced with a situation, and also a question of what are weapons and how do they work? How far away do you stand from it? How close do you go to it? What is the damage it can do? But we're also sensitive to, female journalists in the field. So there's this great awareness of it. But look, there are lots of protocols. There's the United Nations a protocol which speaks to, the right to freedom of movement, including of citizens and journalists, etc. There are the Geneva Conventions, that also speak to the freedom of movement. And there are lots of other institutions who do this kind of training. The International News Safety Institute, is very open, and they're worldwide, and they do quite a lot of valuable training on it. There's also Reporters Without Borders, who drew up a charter on the safety of journalists probably about 14 years ago or something like that. It's an 8 or 10-point plan or something like that. But I would say, in general, familiarize yourself with the situation, arm yourself with the basic principles of journalists, find out as much as possible, find out who the players are on the ground to protect yourself. And I think it's also the duty of editors and publishers and newsrooms and whatever to inform the journalist going out there what he or she is exposing themselves to, because no life is worth any hostile situation. But these days, sorry, you were saying we live in a very dangerous situation. I think in the past we've had to wear gas masks and bulletproof vests and so on. But I mean, these days, if you look at the student movement, but there's also hostility, in our legislatures. There's some hostility in our parliaments as well. So what do you do in a situation like that? It changes from situation to situation.
What do you then make now? Which the thing that concerns me a little bit within the whole protest is now we have a scenario where a group of photographers and some journalists have said, well, we're no longer going to cover the Fees Must Fall protest. As the IAJ, how do you view that kind of behavior from the other side?
Look, it's their right. It's their right to say that as individuals and as publishers and as a corporation such as the SABC. They have to decide and sit down and look at the pros and cons. It is their right. If it has become too dangerous, that is what needs to be discussed. But of course, the public will be deprived, of what is happening out there. And I think the student body as well, conveying their demands, and their demands are valid. It's just how they're executing it. I think that has taken a bad turn.
Welcome back. It's time for sports now. The Proteas have started the last day of the first test against Sri Lanka on the right footing, taking early wickets. They can surely smell victory, and this at the end of the tunnel. Let's go live to St. George's Park, where our SABC commentary team brings us fiery ball by fiery ball commentary.
Sri Lanka have lost 3 for 18 this morning. As we welcome the viewers from Channel 404, it's excellent news for South Africa. 2 wickets away from a win here at St. George's Park.
Yeah, welcome to St. George's Park, and it's all happening. South Africa, all over Sri Lanka. It's a beautiful day in Port Elizabeth, and Lucknow, his test career, 22 matches. Average of 8 exactly. Never seen that before. They'll need all 8 of those and multiples as well.
Don't be so harsh. He's done his work with the ball. It was the batsman that really needed to stand up tall here at St. George's. Done pretty well for himself, helping himself to 4 runs.
Halfway to his average. One more and he's there, he's equal. Can he better it?
What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had a lot, actually. Also, but a nice looking shot by Lakmal, tall man. But back to my point before the fall of the wicket. If you knew on the first day of a test match as Sri Lanka, you get off the bus, you get to the ground, and you knew that you needed 248 runs to win a test match against South Africa in St. George's Park, would you take that? You'll take it with both hands. But the process of how they've ended up there is one that will question the coach and probably the selectors and also the men that have gone out there and are now 262 for 8.
Pick up 2 runs here, Lakmal. Sri Lanka 264 for 8. The band is cranking up here at St. George's Park in Port Elizabeth. Just received from breaking news from Cricket South Africa, and that is that tickets for day 1 of the New Year's test in Cape Town have been sold out. So if you're looking for tickets and you haven't bought some, you have the best seat in the house, because we'll be bringing you live coverage from the 2nd of January here on SABC Sport on 3 and of course on Radio 2000. That was an excellent effort from Vernon Philander, who continues. Lakmal's just throwing the bat at everything at the moment.
Goodness, 8 or 4 balls, striking at 250, T20 for Lakmal. He wants to chase these down as quickly as possible. It's short, he cuts it over that vacant area between just over where Gully would be. Vernon Philander testing the middle of the pitch. I won't be surprised if there's a Yorker coming or something that's going to disturb that front pad. It's set for that, the men catching on the leg side.
Got him. No. Well, South Africans got quite excited. So did I. 91 overs gone, 268 for 8.
Fantastic. What a live dip into live cricket. Awesome stuff there. Almost saw a wicket being taken live right here on SABC Newsroom. Thanks very much to the commentary team for allowing us to share those moments with them. Now, staying with cricket news, the Boxing Day test between Australia and Pakistan came to a thrilling close, with Australia beating Pakistan by an innings and 18 runs. Aussie skipper Steve Smith was named man of the match, and Mitchell Starc, who mopped up the Pakistani tail, also set a new batting record, hitting 7 sixes, the most ever in innings for a Melbourne test. Let's see how the Baggy Greens brought the thriller to a close.
Bowling, it's back on the stumps. Little change in the field, a tentative forward defence.
Here we go, first ball after lunch. It's an appeal, it's swinging, and it's out! And taken, there's a wicket! And it's Nathan Lyon! Goes again, and he's gone! He's got 2 and 3 balls!
And he's got him, has he? Oh, good catch, Peter Hanscom. That's a beauty. That's what they needed. Something special to break the partnership. Shout. Good for him. Oh, ho. It's happening at the G's. Gone.
Oh, there it is! It's been a while for the Aussies. They finally get the 7th. Top of your shoulder joint. Collarbone bone where it joins the shoulder. That's out! The big innie came! And Savraz has got to go. He's in place right next to him. Does it? He tries the off stump and wins!
I told you. It's a matter of time. Catches. In the air, this could be it. Midon's getting under it. Yes, he is. That's a big win. Magnificent cricket by the Australians today.
They struggled with the ball for 2 days, but in the end, that's a very good win.
Yeah, super stuff from the Australians.
Fantastic cricket coverage there. Now, Rafael Nadal comfortably beat Thomas Berdych in the opening round of the Mubadala World Tennis Championship in Abu Dhabi. The Spanish world number 9 raced to a dominating 6-love lead in the first set, giving his Czech opponent little opportunity to make any kind of resistance. Berdych put up more of a fight in the second set, but still could not break Nadal's serve, who went on to win 6-love, 6-4. Meanwhile, David Goffin beat Jo-Wilfried Tsonga in the opening match, also in Abu Dhabi. The Belgian world number 11 beat Tsonga 7-6, 6-4 to set up a meeting with world number 1 Andy Murray as the players gear up for next month's Australian Open. And the conclusion of the current 2016-2017 ABSA Premiership will be extended by 2 months. The program will end in July instead of May. Premier Soccer League Chairman Ivan Khoza says this was solely done to accommodate current CAF Champions League title holders Mamelodi Sundowns. The long break for the 2017 Africa Cup of Nations tournament in Gabon does not help the situation either.
What a night!
The exploits of Mamelodi Sundowns in this year's CAF Champions League helped to restore the image of South African football internationally. They went on to become the first South African club to play in the FIFA Club World Cup. But this came at a costly price. Sundowns are now 5 games behind in the current league program and will also meet CAF Confederation Cup champions TP Mazembe in the Super Cup next February. This is a game between the winners of the previous season's 2 CAF club competitions.
It needs to be extended because if Sundowns is going to continue, for instance, in the Nedbank competition until the final, as the fixture stands now, we can see it spilling over to beyond May. Tentatively, as an executive committee, we had agreed that to err on the side of caution might assist. The second week of July, we've placed it as the end of the season. But that creates its own complications because it's going to affect, the playoffs.
Khoza says PSL action will only resume on the 7th of February, despite the absence of Bafana Bafana in the biennial tournament. AFCON starts on the 14th of next month and runs until the 5th of February.
When we did the plan in the first instance, we are accommodating Bafana Bafana, but at the same time, we saw that we are part of the continent. Should not only Bafana Bafana, that there are teams in the country that are using the teams, from the continent. So if those teams, are affected, it's only fair and fair play. We allow them to have our players available, when the AFCON, concludes in the first week of February.
With South Africa being the pace setters on the African continent, the PSL could be the first to introduce the much-needed goal line technology in the game.
We are finding ways of how to mitigate against the cost, because our game is highly competitive. Our games in the PSL, are unpredictable, the results. But very importantly, the most important person in that field of play is the referee. So if ever there are other mechanisms, other technology might assist, the efficiency of the referees and the fairness on the results, there's nothing stopping us from investing in that kind of technology.
Khoza says despite many calls to align the local PSL calendar with the rest of the continent, this is not going to be possible in the foreseeable future.
The FIFA calendar, people must know that we are the people that made it possible, and ask SAFA that there must be one common calendar, and it was done on the basis of this season, the rest of the world. So the FIFA calendar. So now if we're going to change, it means now the calendar is not going to change, because that time there was a very compelling argument. South Africa was the first to sign the letter to FIFA to ask for the change of calendar. It must be a common calendar. So all that was taken into account with us having written the letter for the first time.
South Africa will soon introduce salary caps for players to be in line with most developed countries. Sfiso Ramara, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, one of the things that's been very interesting about this test out in Port Elizabeth is it was meant to have been rained out at some point, and we've had fantastic weather. With me is Sihle, our meteorologist, who's going to tell us a little bit about what we can expect in Cape Town, because we're hoping that we get the same kind of weather.
Yes, you see, Kendall, what's happening in Cape Town is actually interesting. It's clear skies,
but it's uncomfortable because there's so much moisture currently in that area. So it's hot and humid and uncomfortable, especially if you're going towards the interior. It's very hot and uncomfortable. I'm going to explain that a little bit later, but just a few places. You also mentioned PE. I see the game is playing in PE. Yeah, the weather there, it's clear, it's beautiful, but and it's PE is normally called the Windy City, but this time the weather is beautiful.
No, fantastic. Thank you very much, Sihle. No, we're looking forward to that. There you have it. Sihle is telling us that come Monday, we're going to have weather that's going to be a little muggy, a little hot, but we can definitely expect that we're going to have a beautiful sunny days for our boys to dominate Sri Lanka. Time for the weather.
Yes, Kendall, let's see what is happening with that latest weather forecast. But now we're looking at Africa, the whole of Africa. Starting in the central parts, we're seeing the scattered showers. They're developing mainly in the morning. You're seeing just whimsy clouds, but then they develop later into bigger clusters where we can expect a 60% chance of rainfall, especially for places in the northern parts. For today, it's Botswana. We're having actually some heavy rainfalls in places like Francistown, going north towards Gaborone and Kasane. Actually, that area, that's where we're expecting large amounts of rainfall. But over the central parts, expecting isolated showers over Free State going into northwest Gauteng later on today. But for now, we're seeing just partly cloudy skies. Tomorrow, we're expecting still that great chance of rainfall, that's 60% over the central parts of Botswana, going into Zambia and Angola, mainly due to that low pressure system extending a trough all the way towards the southern parts of the country. Now, taking a look at the warnings, I just spoke about high FDIs over the central parts of Northern Cape going into the Western Cape. Something that's interesting is that over the interior, we're having hot, extremely hot and humid weather, actually hot and dry over the interior, but going towards the Brede River Valley and in towards the central Karoo, we're expecting hot and humid weather conditions. You see the temperatures are very hot in those areas, and humid weather leads to very uncomfortable conditions, especially since you cannot sweat in those areas. Sutherland reaching 35, extremely hot. Cape Town 28, mostly sunny weather is expected. At Port Elizabeth, we're seeing just clear skies for now. We're expecting that to persist, just a few clouds that you can see here and there, but nothing serious. Into the interior, expecting isolated showers. Bloemfontein reaching 32, and into the extreme northeastern parts of the country, expecting scattered showers in places. Looking at the temperatures, Polokwane peaking at 22, Pretoria peaking at 31, very hot conditions expected. All in towards just the Zimbabwe and Botswana. Remember, as I told you, those central parts, Francistown, Serowe, that's where we're expecting quite a lot of rainfall. Looking at those temperatures, Serowe 26, Bulawayo 24, cooling down, expecting Harare at 27 degrees Celsius for today. Windhoek only expecting partly cloudy conditions with temperatures mainly in the 30s. Looking at the northern parts, still expecting isolated showers in places like Kigali, going towards Nairobi, Mombasa and Dar es Salaam, but partly cloudy conditions are seen in Kilimanjaro with a high of 32 degrees Celsius. Now, rainfall for the northern parts, it's almost always similar to as this time of the year. We're just expecting rainfall just to the northern coastline of Libya with partly cloudy conditions around it, but the rest of the Sahara Desert remains clear. And then for the southern parts, just expecting that rainfall, just to explain, mainly in the central parts of the country. Tomorrow, we're expecting still isolated showers in the south, and in the extreme northern coastline, just very, very few showers with partly cloudy conditions surrounding it. Temperatures, we're seeing Addis Ababa peaking at 21, Khartoum at 33, Masava at 29, Sana'a at 22, and moving further north, still expecting very cold conditions in places like Tehran in the extreme northern parts, where we're seeing 10 as a maximum. We're seeing Damascus peaking at 12, Cairo at 17, still seeing clear skies over the central parts of Israel, with Riyadh reaching a high of 28. That was your newsroom with that was your weather with Newsroom. Remember to stay tuned to SABC News.
Win a brand new Kia Picanto with SABC TV license. You can also win an all-expenses-paid trip to the Last Dance concert in Richards Bay on the 31st of December 2016. To win, SMS your valid TV license number to 33175 as many times as you can. SMSs cost R1.50, T's and C's apply. It's another great SABC summer. It's all about you.
Water-wise, water is an essential need. The scarcity of it could lead to loss of many lives, including livestock, plants, and much more. It requires us to use it sparingly and responsibly in times of need, failing which our taps and sanitation will not function. For more on water and weather issues, stay tuned to News Today, every Friday at 4:45 Central African Time. SABC News, making you water-wise.
A meteorite hit the Earth 2 million years ago, creating an enormous impact of crater, about 10 kilometers in diameter, near Vredefort in the Free State, 100 kilometers southwest of Johannesburg, now known as the Vredefort Dome, a South African World Heritage Site. The meteorite is said to have been larger than Table Mountain and caused a 1,000 megaton blast of energy. The impact would have heated about 70 cubic kilometers of rock and have increased the Earth's oxygen levels to a degree that made the development of multicellular life possible. The world has about 130 crater structures of possible impact origin. The Vredefort Dome is the largest in the world, followed by Sudbury Crater in Canada and the Chicxulub Crater in Mexico.
Good morning and welcome. It's now 11 o'clock Central African Time on Friday the 30th of December. Just 2 more days to go to the end of the year. You're watching Newsroom. I'm Kendall Makamate and I will be with you for the next hour. If you've just joined us, we're coming to you live from our headquarters in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. Now, our morning has been basically focused on the Fees Must Fall protests that dominated and rocked most of the university campuses around the country this year. And with just 2 days to go to the end of the year, we're asking you, what have been your most memorable moments of 2016? Good or bad? We're certainly hoping that you're able to share your thoughts with us over the course of the morning. We'd love to be getting your thoughts on exactly what happened in 2016. A lot of people have been responding to that question over the course of the day. And as always, we're also conducting an online poll in which we ask you, will public schools ever be able to perform as well as private schools? Now, throughout the day, we've been getting some responses. 80%, close on 80%, have been saying no, it's never going to happen. That public and private schools will be able to bridge the gap in terms of performance, while 21% have been more on the positive side, saying that yes, you think it can and probably might happen. Let's know all your thoughts on our Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom or on our Facebook page. But first up, let's take a quick look at the news headlines. It's been a night of celebrations for matriculants from independent schools across the country. US President Barack Obama has hit back at Russia for meddling in the recent presidential election. And the Proteas going to the last day of the test against Sri Lanka at St. George's Park Point, looking to snuff out the tourist fire and take the test series 1-0. Top story this morning, traffic authorities say the scene of the accident of the overturned bus near East London on the road towards King Williamstown has been cleared up and traffic is flowing normally. 2 people have been admitted to hospital in a critical condition and 3 others seriously. The 30 other passengers aboard the bus have been treated on the scene and at hospital. The cause of the accident is not known and an investigation is being launched. In other news, it's been a night of celebrations for matric students from independent schools across the country. The Independent Examination Board results that were released at midnight show a pass rate of 98.67%, up from 98.3 last year.
The Steyn twins spent Thursday trying to calm their nerves. Little did they know that 10 distinctions awaited them at the stroke of midnight. The sisters are amongst 87% of IEB matriculants eligible for university studies. More than 11,000 full-time and over 700 part-time candidates set for the exams. The class of 2016 attained a 98.67% pass, an improvement on 2015's 98.30%. There was also a 2% increase in bachelor passes. The IB says the improvements can be attributed to a number of factors.
First of all, one can't take away from the fact that the learners themselves have worked exceptionally hard. They've tried all year and they've worked all year. And in fact, for the 12 years that they were at school, supported by a very good teaching cohort, well-managed schools with principals doing their best to keep the teachers and the learners on their tasks.
There's also been an improvement in maths and science passes. Mahlako Komane, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, SABC reporter Philip van der Walt at an IEB school in Seshego, Limpopo stands by to share with us some of the goings-on and happenings out there as a result of these results coming out. Philip, good morning to you. Please bring us up to speed with what's going on where you are.
Good morning. Yes, I am at one of the 13 schools in Limpopo province which has written the IEB exams. There are, of course, a number of other schools that are also private schools, but I will ask the headmaster to explain the difference between the two for us. What we do know is that we are the province in the country with the highest number of schools that has written the IEB exams. That is 13. The only other province, the Eastern Cape, has got 18, and we are now at one of those 13 schools in our province, which to them, according to themselves, is a very significant achievement, thinking that they've achieved 88% pass rate.
That's Philip van der Walt out in Seshego. We're definitely looking forward to hear what he and the principal have got to say. He just mentioned that Limpopo has got 13 IEB schools. That's more than anywhere else in the country. Definitely looking forward to hearing what else they've got to say, and we'll definitely be trying to get back there. Meanwhile, the Education Quality Assurer Umalusi has approved the results of public schools despite a pending investigation into leaked exam papers in Limpopo and Gauteng. Umalusi says mathematics remains a stubborn problem with no progress over the last 3 years. The National Senior Certificate results will be released next week, Wednesday and Thursday.
The culmination of a 12-year journey. About 815,000 pupils set for the National Senior Certificate examinations. Umalusi has given the exam process the thumbs up despite some irregularities.
We commend the department for running a successful and credible examination process, and accordingly we hereby approve the release of the 2016 results.
But deep concern about the performance in mathematics.
It's one subject where the performance is completely flat. It is alarming that since 2014, mathematical literacy is no longer the soft option.
Mathematics paper 2 was leaked in 2 schools in Limpopo. The results of pupils involved in the leaks will not be released pending investigations.
The exact number will be made known by the minister next week at the release of the results.
The 2016 results are expected to be released next Thursday. The Western Capes the following day. Mulimo Waonemotwa, SABC News, Pretoria.
President Jacob Zuma has stressed the importance of obtaining a good education, saying it's the only way that families can be freed from poverty. He was speaking at the 15th Jacob Zuma Education Trust Children and Youth's Christmas Party.
Advocate Sfiso Khumalo is amongst the 20,000 recipients helped by the trust fund since 1995. All beneficiaries are from poor backgrounds. Khumalo, who hails from Soweto, has 9 degrees behind his name.
In 2010, when the whole nation was celebrating the FIFA World Cup, I was financially excluded from the University of the Witwatersrand. I owed 52,000 Rand, imagine a young boy from Soweto going to Wits University, doing his first years, being kicked out of university, not because he's stupid, but because he cannot pay.
Newly qualified medical doctor Thabisile Mpofane is from an informal settlement at Inanda outside Durban. She says her family could not afford to send her to university as she was raised by a single mother who had to care for 7 children.
It was impossible for me to go to university, and that forced me to do part-time jobs to pay for my high school education. I want to thank God for his mercy.
President Jacob Zuma urged the business sector to employ qualified young people and also to help do fundraising for education.
In particularly directing this emphasis to business people. A contribution that you make to a child that is being educated by the trust and the foundation is in fact a national contribution of nation building.
The other graduates who attended qualified in fields of engineering, nursing, chemistry and social sciences. The young children were all smiles and excited when the president handed them food parcels and gifts. Londi Khatebe, SABC News, Nkandla.
And news that will put a dampener on some of the celebratory spirits going into the weekend is the Energy Department has announced that the petrol price will increase by between 48 and 50 cents a litre. This at midnight this coming Tuesday. The price of diesel will also increase by up to 39 cents a litre, and eliminating paraffin prices will go up by 43 cents a litre. This comes on the back of stronger oil prices and a weaker rand. The Judicial Inspectorate of Correctional Services is to launch a full-blown investigation into increasing violence, drugs, as well as the occurrence of dangerous weapons in prisons. The inspectorate says the recent incident at St. Albans Maximum in Port Elizabeth is just the tip of the iceberg. 3 inmates died and several were injured during a violent brawl.
As the inspectorate gave an unusual mid-festive season briefing, an incident at Malmesbury prison underlying the gravity of the problem. Close to 2,000 kilos of dagga confiscated, smuggled over the security fence into the prison grounds, allegedly by gangs. Gang-related activities inside prisons are also on the rise.
Our staff need to be trained properly in terms of gangsterism. Our experienced officials are leaving the facilities, and we need them to train the younger ones to deal especially with the issue about intelligence of gangsterism.
Overpopulation and understaffing exacerbate the problem. For instance, this facility is currently accommodating 7,477 inmates, but normally it is supposed to be only accommodating 4,336. That means it is overcrowded by more than 2,500. These cells were built for a maximum of 20 prisoners, but at any given time, more than 60 inmates are crammed into the confined space.
JIX has previously reported and indicated the unsatisfactory situation where, during the holiday period especially, our correctional and remand facilities are not adequately staffed. This exacerbates the constant complaint of understaffing in overpopulated facilities. An immediate solution must be sought where our prisons are run as 24-hour institutions providing both security and care at all times.
Investigations will include deaths in correctional services facilities, including that of Ananias Mate.
Of course, his death must also be investigated. It is understandable that inmates can die for medical reasons, and especially in a case where surgery has happened and apparently failed. But somewhere in the media there were reports that his initial complaints were not taken seriously. One must look into that.
Correctional Services is conducting parallel investigations into violence and lawlessness in prisons. Manelisi Tubase, SABC News, Cape Town.
Right, early on we were chatting with Philip van der Walt out in Seshego, Limpopo. It's an IEB school, the Masiela Progressive Secondary School, who've achieved an 88% pass rate, and something they're definitely proud of. So we're going to try and get Philip back on the line to share some more of those experiences with us. And Philip, please carry on and give us your thoughts on what's going on. And I believe that you've also got the principal close by.
Johannesburg, sorry, am I back with you?
100% you are. Please carry on and talk to us.
Hello, Johannesburg. Good afternoon, listeners. Good morning, listeners. I am at the Masiela School in Seshego, which is one of 13 schools who write the IEB exams this year. There's only 13 schools in our province, although there are very many private schools apart from these 13, and I'm going to be asking the headmaster to explain the difference to us between the two. But I just want to mention that we are the province, Limpopo is the province with the second highest number of IEB schools in the country. The Eastern Cape on number 18 schools is the highest, and we've got 13. This school, the Masiela School in Seshego, being one of them. The school has done very well, and they've had an 88% matric pass rate. I also have with me the top learner, and I will be speaking to him. But let us go to the headmaster, Mr. Trust Chimundu, and I'm going to find out from him what the difference is between a private school and a private school that writes the IEB, Independent Examinations Board exams.
Thank you, Philip. Good morning, viewers. Philip, our school is a private school owned by black entrepreneurs, and it is based in a township. That makes it a big difference from the schools based in other areas around us, like, for example, the 12 other schools in the province. They're generally owned by corporates and by other people, but this one is one unique school basically owned by black business people and based in a township, and it might be one of the unique schools in the whole country based in the township. And we write the IEB exam, which is an independent exam different from the Department of Basic Education examination. In this case, the IEB exam, if you've rightly checked earlier, it's a bit of a challenge, but people are making it, and the general average for the national is quite high at 98.7% presently, and we need to, as a school here, we are also trying to catch up to make it to 100%. Presently we are at 88%, and we're looking to go as high as we can. That is, of course, to 100. In the previous years, we have not been so fortunate. We have been growing by year from our first matric year in 2010, and we managed 31%, which was quite bad at that moment. And then we rose all the way to 81% in 2013. And we had a slight drop in 2014 at 73.3%, and we rose slightly again to 75% in 2015. So 88% for a school based in the townships. Remember, some of our students come from the RDPs, from marginalized areas, from very disadvantaged situations, and they come to a school which is writing an independent exam where they have to pay for everything, and they have to rise to the occasion and compete with students who are in elite schools and elite situations, and they come up with a result like this. This is a real blessing to the school and an outstanding achievement for a school based in under such circumstances.
I also have with me the best learner for the year, who is Joy Mamabolo. Joy achieved 6 distinctions. Joy, tell us, how did you do that?
Good morning, listeners. Basically, the first and most important thing I could say is that I owe the result to God and Jesus Christ, because I'm a Christian. And so, yes, there is a hard work involved in it, a lot of sleepless nights. Yeah, you have to leave a lot of things. Like I couldn't go to to the malls all any time that I wanted to. I was basically at school 7 days a week. Sometimes, or most times, I had to knock off as late as 9 p.m. Yeah, so it was a very hectic year. You have to put in the hard work. That's what I can say.
And what does your future look like?
Oh, as for my future, I aspire to become an aeronautical engineer. First, I'm going to study my first year in mechanical engineering at Stellenbosch, so that I specialize eventually in aeronautical engineering. I want to design aeroplanes. Yeah.
Since early this morning, about 10 o'clock, parents and the 50 matriculants gathered at the school where they received the results, and there was also a lot of celebration and happiness. The school has had 8 learners from the 50 who did not pass, and but spirits are very high nevertheless. Philip on the Volt, SABC, Seshego.
Oh, fantastic. Philip, thank you so much for sharing that with us, and good luck to that young man. Congratulations to him and the school for the excellent results. I'm certainly looking forward to flying in one of the planes, or maybe even a shuttle that that young man, Mr. Mamabolo, will be designing in future. Going on to other news, the Hawks have arrested 3 traffic officials at Brits in the Northwest. They're facing charges of corruption, fraud and bribery. Members of the Hawks stormed the Brits Traffic Department building unexpectedly and arrested the 3 suspects, including a female traffic official. The 3 were allegedly spotted taking bribes from traffic offenders. The 3 traffic officers are expected to appear at the Brits Magistrates Court on 3 charges of bribery, corruption and fraud. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll bring you more news, more analysis. You're watching Newsroom.
Information-hungry viewers stay with SABC News, as issues on the West are different from issues on the East or here in Johannesburg. So it is not surprising that people who follow the news know that there are 2 things for sure: that anything can happen, and SABC News will tell you when it does. Because we keep the nation fully informed. We are SABC News.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. Now, during the Fees Must Fall protests, universities were turned into battlegrounds in 2016 as students went on the rampage demanding free education. Weeks of violence saw campuses across the country shut down during the Fees Must Fall protests. Rubber bullets, tear gas and stun grenades were the order of the day, as textbooks were traded for rocks. Placards demonstrated anger and desperation. The result, unprecedented disruptions to the academic program and exams pushed forward.
Wits University, the center of the protests over free education.
There's quite a lot of disruption at this stage. Some stones now being flung at the security personnel that are manning the entrance to the Great Hall at this stage. Chaos.
One of the worst affected institutions of higher learning, characterized by running battles between angry students, private security and fed-up police.
We were attacked by police, totally unprovoked. We were marching, we did not engage them. It was them who fired stun grenades and rubber bullets. As you can see behind me, students are attempting to disperse, but we're being attacked from all sides.
But it was this statement by the Higher Education Minister that added fuel to the fire, an indication that free education was not on the cards.
We've looked at the challenges at hand from all sides and have concluded that the best approach would be to allow universities individually to determine the level of increase that their institutions will require to ensure that they continue to operate effectively and at least maintain existing quality. With the caution that this has to also take into account affordability to students and therefore has to be transparent, reasonable, and related to inflation-linked adjustments. Our recommendation is that the fee adjustment should not go above 8%.
More stun grenades then.
The violence then escalated and students abandoned their campuses and took to the streets to garner support for their struggle. As the visuals were beamed around the world, calls for solidarity intensified. The umbrella body of unions, COSATU, was among the doors students went knocking on.
Comrades, we came here because we are children of the working class. Our parents are poor. COSATU represents the working class, not unless they tell us otherwise today. We came to COSATU solely because they represent the poor of the poorest. We are then saying COSATU can afford to remain silent in this matter. COSATU should not just speak, they must act.
As the chaos spilled onto the streets, acts of criminality crept in and incidents of violence spread.
Once the students move from the campus onto the streets, it's very difficult to police who is who. So then it becomes very difficult for the law enforcement agencies to take any action against anyone because you aren't able to point out whether these are students or they're just bystanders or people taking advantage of the situation.
Prompting calls for calm even from the highest office in the land.
What has happened is that the students are protesting. They protest as if there is no process addressing this matter, and yet there is a process headed by a judge with people with expertise to deal with this matter. Now, they are pushing protests, and their approach is quite a problematic one because they are not necessarily negotiating. For an example, they ought to go and make a presentation why they say this and give the details. But when they speak in public, they say we are not going to stop until our demand is accepted. Now, you don't negotiate like that. Now, that has led to a situation of violent protests. And we saw a bus a few days ago being burnt. We saw students fighting with stones. That has become violent.
While there may be a lull as universities are on recess, these are likely scenes which will play out again next year when tertiary institutions reopen, as students vow their fight is far from over. Griselda Lewis, SABC News in Johannesburg.
The South African Police Service again came under the spotlight in 2016 for alleged use of excessive force. The men and women in blue were accused of brutality during this year's Fees Must Fall protests. Police and students fought running battles during the protests that turned violent.
From the onset, the battle lines were drawn. The gates of the institution forcefully blocked, but police were having none of it. And signs of an impending war between the two sides loomed. Police accused of being heavy-handed.
I've never seen such militancy on this campus ever before. At no point have BIT students ever been violent on their campus.
It marked the beginning of the running battles. some students arrested.
We were on our knees. We were on our knees, we were as peaceful as can be, and they said that they are arresting us because we are contravening the interdict. We did not disrupt any traffic.
The students resolve to see a complete shutdown of the university by whatever means.
Forward with the spirit of defiance, forward!
Students were on the war path. And police and security along the enemy lines. But it was the arrest of this student leader at Rhodes University that fueled further resentment and anger. Wits University students held a demonstration against brutality.
We don't want these policemen intimidating us and causing us not to actually have an education. By fighting these fees, we're actually trying to fight for everyone, not for ourselves.
There is no reason to create our universities into police states. There's just no reason, and we cannot.
But police were also at the receiving end. Facing a volatile situation, more boots on the ground.
These are all indications of a concerted effort to conduct protest action in a violent, unlawful manner with the intention of destroying property and creating an unruly environment.
The violence also spilled over to other institutions. There too, similar running battles. With protests intensifying, some student leaders were arrested.
And police arrested me for asking too many questions, essentially about another student who was arrested.
Fees Must Fall leader Mcebo Dlamini was also arrested several weeks later. His arrest and subsequent detention sparked an outcry.
The struggle continues. There's no amount of police brutality, solitary confinement, and whatever other methods that might be used to try and silence us.
Tensions reached a crescendo after Wits leader Shaira Kala faced the barrel of a gun on campus. Despite surrendering to police, she was shot 13 times with rubber bullets at close range.
And as I begged, don't shoot, with my hands up my hands up. As we begged, they were determined to follow instructions, and the instructions were to kill this movement and to kill it by fear, and to make us fear by hurting us.
Police again facing accusations of brutality.
Allegations that the police is specifically targeting student leaders or trying to destabilize the hashtag Fees Must Fall initiative is untrue.
And calls for police to be removed from campus.
We have to ask ourselves questions about what is being defended so vehemently, so violently, that our youngest, our brightest have to be broken, criminalized, demonized, bombarded, tear-gassed, shot 13 times.
Over 500 people were arrested during the Fees Must Fall protests countrywide. As the dust settled, scars ran deep. Wits University has since announced it will hike its fees for 2017 by 8%. Wits University says it will do all it can to lobby for sponsorship for needy students, but student leaders say it's not enough. They're not ruling out the possibility of more protest action when the 2017 academic year starts. Mangoba Mkhulu, SABC News at Wits University in Johannesburg.
Whether you're looking for a restaurant, public transport or a university, a lot of us use our smartphone apps to find the closest one. On Network, we chat with those who play a role in Africa's tech space.
We have taken financial services closer to the people. Yeah, mobile penetration is pretty high.
Apple take 30%, keep 70%.
On Network, we give you Africa's social media and technology news. That's Network with Ms. Phumelele Zondi every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time.
Water-wise, water is an essential need. The scarcity of it could lead to loss of many lives, including livestock, plants, and much more. It requires us to use it sparingly and responsibly in times of need, failing which our taps and sanitation will not function. For more on water and weather issues, stay tuned to News Today, every Friday at 4:45 Central African Time. SABC News, making you water-wise.
Win a brand new Kia Picanto with SABC TV license. You can also win an all-expenses-paid trip to the Last Dance concert in Richards Bay on the 31st of December 2016. To win, SMS your valid TV license number to 33175 as many times as you can. SMSs cost R1.50, T's and C's apply. It's another great SABC summer. It's all about you.
The nature continues to wreak havoc in some parts of the country, this time around in KwaZulu-Natal.
16-year-old Nhlakanipho and 19-year-old Sinethemba were both hit by lightning. They were asleep inside this rondavel, their home completely gutted.
It's very difficult. I wish it was me who died instead of my children.
In Alexandra, north of Johannesburg, another distraught family. 4 days on, and the Chauke family is still clinging on to hope that the body of their 3-year-old daughter will be found. The search for a Pretoria woman who disappeared after a vehicle was swept away by floods continues. She was driving over the Apis River with her son.
Welcome back. It's time for your sports on a Newsroom. South Africa beat Sri Lanka by 206 runs on the 5th day of the first test at St. George's Park today. The Proteas have started the last day of the first test against Sri Lanka on the right footing, taking an early wicket. They could surely smell victory at the end of the tunnel. Now, we had a match that was on the go throughout the day, and a little earlier we crossed live to that match, but now we're not crossing live anymore. What we do have is we've got a report on exactly how the best of the best happened, how the wickets fell, because as I said, South Africa won that test.
Missing leg, no, up goes the finger.
Big appeal for LBW, everybody going up, and the umpire's figure also goes up.
First day of a test match. In the air, has he got it? Cotton Bolt, Vernon Philander, it's all happening.
I hope he's all right. He's holding on to his shoulder, but that is an excellent effort from the big man. Got him.
Bowled him. Keshav Maharaj has finished the test match with an absolute beauty. Turn and bounce, flick the top of off stump, the classic left arm spinner's wicket. Sri Lanka have been bowled out for 281, and South Africa have won by 206 runs to take a 1-0 lead in the first Sunfoil test match.
That comprehensive 206-run win by South Africa's bowling attack was totally evidence of the fire and resilience in that bowling attack. It took less than 90 minutes for the last 5 Sri Lankan wickets to fall. That roar of approval from many a South African fan can be heard all over here. Staying with cricket news, the Boxing Day test between Australia and Pakistan came to a thrilling close, with Australia beating Pakistan by an innings and 18 runs. Aussie skipper Steve Smith was named man of the match, and Mitchell Starc, who mopped up the Pakistani tail, also set a new batting record, hitting 7 sixes, the most ever in an innings for a Melbourne Test. Let's see how the Baggy Greens brought the thriller to a close.
Bowling, it's back on the stumps. Little change in the field, a tentative forward defence. Here we go, first ball after lunch. It's an appeal, it's swinging, and it's out! And taken, there's a wicket! And it's Nathan Lyon! Goes again, and he's gone! He's got 2 and 3 balls! And he's got him, has he? Oh, good catch, Peter Hanscom! That's a beauty! That's what they needed! Something special to break the partnership! Shout! Governing! Oh, ho! It's happening at the G's! Gone! Oh, there it is! It's been a while for the Aussies! They finally get the 7th. Top of your shoulder joint. Collarbone, bone where it joins the shoulder. That's out! The big innie came! And Savraz has got to go. He's in place right next to him. Does it? He tries the off stump and wins!
I told you. It's a matter of time.
Catches. In the air, this could be it. Midon's getting under it. Yes, he is! That's a big win. Magnificent cricket by the Australians today. They struggled with the ball for 2 days, but in the end, that's a very...
There you have it. The 2 home teams are winning on today, this Friday the 30th of December. Both Boxing Day tests, both Australia and the Proteas winning their home test. Now, Rafael Nadal comfortably beat Thomas Berdych in the opening round of the Mubadala World Tennis Championship in Abu Dhabi. The Spanish world number 9 raced to a dominating 6-love lead in the first set, giving his Czech opponent little opportunity to make any kind of resistance. Berdych put up more of a fight in the second set, but still could not break Nadal's serve, who went on to win 6-love, 6-4. Meanwhile, David Goffin beat Joe Wilfried Tsonga in the opening match, also in Abu Dhabi. The Belgian world number 11 beat Tsonga 7-6, 6-4 to set up a meet with world number 1 Andy Murray as the players gear up for next month's Australian Open.
Game. Set match confirmed. 7-6, 6-4.
And the conclusion of the current 2016-2017 ABSA Premiership will be extended by 2 whole months. The program will end in July instead of May. Premier Soccer League Chairman Ivan Khoza says this was solely done to accommodate current CAF Champions League title holders Mamelodi Sundowns. The long break for the 2017 Africa Cup of Nations tournament in Gabon does not help the situation either.
What a night!
The exploits of Mamelodi Sundowns in this year's CAF Champions League helped to restore the image of South African football internationally. They went on to become the first South African club to play in the FIFA Club World Cup. But this came at a costly price. Sundowns are now 5 games behind in the current league program and will also meet CAF Confederation Cup champions TP Mazembe in the Super Cup next February. This is a game between the winners of the previous season's 2 CAF club competitions.
It needs to be extended because if Sundowns is going to continue, for instance, in the Nedbank competition until the final, as the fixture stands now, we can see it spilling over to beyond May. Tentatively, as an executive committee, we had agreed that to err on the side of caution might assist. The second week of July, we've placed it as the end of the season. But that creates its own complications because it's going to affect, the playoffs.
Khoza says PSL action will only resume on the 7th of February, despite the absence of Bafana Bafana in the biennial tournament. AFCON starts on the 14th of next month and runs until the 5th of February.
When we did the plan in the first instance, we were accommodating Bafana Bafana, but at the same time, we saw that we are part of the continent. should not only Bafana, that there are teams in the country that are using the teams, from the continent. So if those teams, are affected, it's only fair and fair play. We allow them to have our players available, when the AFCON, concludes in the first week of February.
With South Africa being the pace setters on the African continent, the PSL could be the first to introduce the much-needed goal line technology in the game.
We are finding ways of how to mitigate against the cost, because our game is highly competitive. Our games in the PSL, are unpredictable, the results. But very importantly, the most important person in that field of play is the referee. So if ever there are other mechanisms, other technology might assist, the efficiency of the referees and the fairness on the results, there's nothing stopping us from investing in that kind of technology.
Khoza says despite many calls to align the local PSL calendar with the rest of the continent, this is not going to be possible in the foreseeable future.
The FIFA calendar, people must know that we are the people that made it possible, and ask SAFA that there must be one common calendar, and it was done on the basis of this season, the rest of the world. So the FIFA calendar. So now if we're going to change, it means now the calendar is not going to change, because that time there was a very compelling argument. South Africa was the first to sign the letter to FIFA to ask for the change of calendar. It must be a common calendar. So all that was taken into account with us having written the letter for the first time.
South Africa will soon introduce salary caps for players to be in line with most developed countries. Sfiso Ramara, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, the 2016 edition of the annual Discovery Walter Sisulu tournament came to an end yesterday at the Nike Training Center in Soweto. More than 100 teams from across the country participated in this year's event. Mdudu Zindlovu reports.
The day of the tournament was scheduled for the 28th of December, but due to inclement weather, the finals had to be postponed. At first, the attendance showed that fans were still doubtful if the final would take place, but later on, it was a full house. The men's under-17s were the first to take to the field.
Winning this tournament is a very big honor, and the hard work we've put in since day one of the tournament. We just ripped them off now. The feeling's overwhelming, sir. I can't even explain it, sir.
The same team played last year as under-14s, but they entered the under-17s. And I said to them, last year is not about winning, it's about your growth. And when we grew in this tournament, we were knocked out in the last 16. Went on, we took on the engine. We finished 8th out of 16 PSL clubs. And I said to my boys, what you put into this training sessions, you will rip in the ground. And I think it's all the hard work.
There were a number of Banyana players in the women's final, including Refilwe Chane, Nothando Vilagazi, Tembi Hatlane, Linda Mutlalo, to name just a few.
Firstly, we would like to thank Discovery for giving us, the ladies, the opportunity to participate in this tournament. It gives us a platform to showcase our talent and to come together as individuals, because we know that we've got players who play in the national team, and there are those players who play in the regional leagues and the Sasso League who want to play with the players in the national team. And this tournament gives us the platform to mingle with those players and give us a chance to motivate them.
It was a very new experience, and I'm happy that I had to play at Discovery for the first time, and playing for the first time and winning a tournament is a big thing for me. I'm just happy that we won the tournament, so I'm just happy.
The under-9 teams left the crowd in stitches with their skills and flair, and so too were the Orlando Pirates legends who were up against the Discovery Challenge team. The organizers are full of praise for this year's tournament.
We've been, happy to see that our sponsors, mainly Discover and Clinics and Nike and Total Sport, supporting us all the way. And obviously, we are looking at the next season, 2017. That's what I can share with you, that we need to increase the numbers, maybe start December 2017 and finish January 2018.
Development's very important. So how can we get the young kids to start playing at under 9 so that by the time they're 17, they're already locked into the Walter Sisulu tournament?
Bidvest Vets midfielder Sifiso Mieni was identified from this competition.
I always tell them that you just need to go out there and do the job that you know how to do it. But it's not all about individual person. It's all about the teamwork.
Football scouts have been attending the tournament since the beginning of this month, and the football legends say the tournament is helping professional teams to identify raw talent.
So organized football must learn from these tournaments, because you can see people come from all over the country to come and be able to play in this tournament. There's a lot of women who are coming to watch this game. There's a lot of excitement, and it means organized football. It needs to make sure that in their games there's football like this, there is excitement like this, and everything is going to be what the supporters are looking for.
A lot of talent that I've seen here. It's unbelievable. The true African football that I've seen here, and that's why you've seen all the crowd here, because they want to see the type of football that they can identify with there. And I must say well done to all the teams, the coaches. They uplifted the play, the standard of play in Soweto.
I can say to the youngsters, sports, can be good when playing sport, because you avoid many things at home. But sport, it's a good thing for your body. You can play soccer, you can do anything, but anything that sport, you make a lot of friends, not enemies.
The tournament has been played since the 1st of this month. Next year, raw talent from across the country will be showcased in the 15th edition of the Discovery Walter Sisulu Challenge. Mduduzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
It seems as if the future of South African football is in really good hands. We've now come to the end of the show. In fact, it is the very last edition of Newsroom that you're going to see for 2016. It's the day before New Year's Eve. It's Eve. And what better way to get you into the mood than to end off the show with some music. Remember, do not drink and drive. Take an Uber, take a taxi. Do not walk and drink. Be careful on the roads and while you party. Until next week and next year on Newsroom, see you then. For now, we've got fresh talent on the block. South African R&B hip-hop artist Tacit, who represents the East Rand. He'll be performing his hit song, Live It Up, from his debut album, The Debug. The song was inspired by a true life event. Enjoy.
Money on the stack, stands up on the things. It's the time we taste of the good life. Baby, you know what we've been doing. Yeah, we heard like this. We turning up in every way that we can do it. And we never stop, we just getting into the scene. The money like this. When we get that, then we get paid. But you're standing my way, though you gotta get laid. And everything you say, you're never gonna say that you don't want a little that. Baby, everything is changing, the game is doing well. Glad that we could all sell. So the vodka cups up. Pretty girls screaming with their voices up. That's the taste of a good life. We've been partying hard, now let's take them back to church. Back to church. Church. Preach. It's the time we taste of the good life. Baby, you know what we've been doing. Yeah, we heard like this. We turning up in every way that we can do it. And we never stop, we just getting into the scene. The money like this. When we get that, then we get paid. But you're standing my way, though you gotta get laid. And everything you say, you're never gonna say that you don't want a little that. Baby, don't you leave for the night. Ooh, don't you leave to decide. Na 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 na. Don't you leave for the night.
Presumed U.S. drone strike in the south of the country has killed 3 Al-Qaeda suspects.
Death toll in Yemen's 18-month-old civil war now stands at about 10,000.
People get killed or die and are actually buried before they're recorded. And we don't have a way of recording that, but we know the numbers are much higher.
Water restrictions are to be imposed on villages in and around the Nkomazi municipality.
Pumps can't pump the water because there's no water in a river. And if the water is coming back, then it's full of mud.
Those who can pray and those who can do any miracle to make sure that we've got enough rain, give it a try.
They made us proud. Wade van Niekerk broke a world record winning an Olympic gold medal at Rio 2016, and he got named Sportsman of the Year in South Africa, a people's choice.
Sundowns, Simuso.
Mamelodi Sundowns Football Club are 2016 Kings of Africa after winning the CAF Cup. Caster Semenya won a gold medal for her Olympics 2016 and was named Sportswoman of the Year 2016 in South Africa. They worked hard. Thabiso Sithole, a seasoned sports journalist of note, is now crowned Sports Journalist of the Year at the South African Sports Awards 2016. The Vodacom Journalist of the Year went to Hasina Gori for her hard work in television news and Candice Nolan for her outstanding work in radio news. Dr. Dumi won big at the SABC Gospel Awards, taking 6 awards, and was crowned the Best Artist. Nathi Mankayi, Afro Soul Sensation, was crowned King of the 22nd South African Music Awards. They will be missed. Mandoza Kwaito, singer known for his hit song Galagata, lost a battle to cancer. Gugu Zulu, who made motor racing sport popular amongst blacks, passed on while on a goodwill course in Kilimanjaro. Greg Melville Smith, actor, director, writer and voice-over artist, also moved on to the other side.
I hereby revoke all wills.
Nyembezi Kunene, actor, comedian who left South Africans in stitches in all roles he played, is also no more. Sfiso Ncwane, a popular award-winning artist well known for his rendition, Kulungile Baba, yielded to kidney failure.
The Free State government has set its sights on exploring the flower industry as a means to grow the economy and boost tourism.
We must put a budget for the flower and grow the economy of the Free State.
It's very good advertising for Paris.
What a wonderful, wonderful place to be in right now.
The KwaZulu-Natal Fashion Council has launched a project to grow the fashion industry. It will showcase young designers' clothing ranges and ensure that